In drunkenly cherishing the abandoned wife of the Marquis, Rebirth and Revenge, the protagonist, after being jilted, embarks on a journey of dismantling others' relationships, garnering gratitude in return. She disrupts couples, confronts the Marquis, challenges the Emperor, and even engages romantically with a prince. Through her rebirth, she seeks to alter the fates of the women who suffered in her past life. Blessed with the title of fate-altering expert, she resolutely declines to marry the unworthy Marquis, and when the Emperor suggests she become a nun, she finds it utterly unattainable. In love with a solitary prince, renowned for his striking beauty, he cherishes her deeply. Chapter 1. Bird's Nest and Medicine. Feng Zui realized that she was indeed on the brink of death, abandoned by her Marquis husband in a desolate backyard. Was this the ultimate outcome of her sacrifices for him? Feng Zui was acutely aware of her impending demise. Cast aside in a dilapidated yard, she felt as though she were a discarded doll, particularly after her father and brothers fell in battle, leaving no one to bolster Zhou Jingxi's reputation. With the general's mansion in ruins, she found herself devoid of a maternal home, trapped in solitude while awaiting death. Meanwhile, her husband indulged in amorous escapades with his concubines, never once setting foot in her courtyard. Word had it that her mother-in-law, the elderly matron of the Marquis whom she had served diligently, had brought her niece, Lu Dajiao, to take her place. Once Feng Zui breathed her last, Lu Dajiao would ascend to the role of Marquis. In the Daxia dynasty, in the capital city of Jincheng, autumn had arrived in full swing, bringing with it a chill as the foliage withered, the white dew turned into frost, and the autumn winds grew more biting. In the secluded and dilapidated courtyard of the Scorned Marquis, a fair-faced maid was diligently concocting medicine. As the cold wind swept through, the maid fixed her gaze intently on the bubbling pot, her lips quivering slightly, murmuring, "Mistress, please do not blame me, do not blame me. If blame is to be laid, let it fall upon yourself." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed as the wooden door swung open, and a tall maid with a dark complexion rushed in. Her striking features were accentuated by a scar the size of an egg on her forehead, lending her an intimidating presence. Clutching a ceramic jar, the newcomer exclaimed, Ting Mei, I have prepared bird's nest porridge for the mistress. Quickly fetch a bowl." Bird's nest is a prized delicacy known for its nourishing properties. How could there be bird's nest porridge? The maid, Ting Mei, felt a flicker of disdain, but masked it with curiosity and confusion. She hastily grabbed a medicinal bowl nearby and approached, asking, "Where did you acquire the bird's nest?" "Oh dear, Honghua, how did your arm get burned?" The maid named Honghua merely smiled innocently and replied nonchalantly, "I pilfered this from the main kitchen. It seems to belong to the young lady. Since she owes Our Lady, I thought it fitting to bring her the bird's nest. My arm is fine, these blisters are nothing. I was worried the porridge would cool, so I covered it with my arm. Hurry and serve it to the mistress. She adores this golden silk bird's nest, and I even added goji berries." The maid preparing the medicine cast a glance at the red fruit, her expression a tapestry of unspoken words and intriguing emotions. Upon entering the room, they found a frail woman lying on a dilapidated wooden bed, her complexion a deep shade of ashen gray. Clad in tattered clothing, a jade pendant dangled from her emaciated neck, and she lay there weakly, her hands languidly hanging by her side. "My lady, what troubles you? I have prepared bird's nest porridge for you. Please eat. Eat well, and you shall recover." Red fruit rushed to the bedside, tears streaming down her cheeks. The woman on the bed, upon hearing the voice, struggled to open her eyes. Her features, once beautiful, now appeared gaunt and parched, resembling a withered leaf devoid of moisture, exuding an aura of lifelessness. She strained to keep her eyes open, yet her gaze was clouded, and her vision blurred. Recognizing the voice, she murmured, "Red fruit, dear, I am fine. Please have Ting Mei feed me." Red fruit obediently stepped aside. Feeling a pang of resentment, it was evident that her lady preferred Ting Mei, and she felt clumsy and unattractive in comparison. Ting Mei, who had been lingering in the shadows by the door, finally emerged. Her complexion was a delicate shade of rosy white, and she wore a gentle smile as she sat by the bed, lifting a bowl of food and a spoon to feed the ailing woman. The woman scrutinized her closely, her voice weak and raspy. "Ting Mei, madam, it is I," Ting Mei replied with a soft and melodious tone. The woman's lips curled into a faint smile, tinged with bitterness. "Help me sit up, I wish to remain upright for a while." Ting Mei frowned, but complied, leaning down to assist the woman. The lingering scent of illness emanated from the woman, and just as Ting Mei bent closer, the woman suddenly seized her throat with both hands, hissing, "Red fruit! Kill her!" Caught off guard, Red fruit rushed forward, gripping Ting Mei's arms, using her knee to push against Ting Mei's back, all to provide the ailing woman with more leverage. Ting Mei's complexion turned an alarming shade of purple, and it seemed she was on the verge of collapse. At that moment, the door was forcefully kicked open, and a woman adorned in jewels and finery, accompanied by several attendants, strode in. One of the attendants kicked Red fruit aside, sending her sprawling to the floor, where she gasped and coughed up a mouthful of dark, purplish blood. Freed from her constraints, Ting Mei forcefully shoved the woman back onto the bed and began to cough violently, clutching her throat. "You are nothing but a worthless wretch." The jewel-clad woman cast a disdainful glance at the violently coughing Ting Mei. She was none other than Lu Dejiao, the cousin of the Marquis of Scorned, Zhou Jingxi. Lu Dejiao, with her stunning beauty accentuated by her lavish adornments, raised a finely arched brow and smirked. "Feng Zui, oh Feng Zui, how had you fallen to such a state? Huh, you are neither human nor ghost. With such a disgraceful demeanor, how dare you aspire to be the wife of my cousin, the Marquis? What a shame. You Lu Dejiao, I shall kill you." The woman on the bed weakly stretched her hand toward Lu Dejiao, grasping at nothing but aired, "Oh dear, sister-in-law, you've succumbed to your illness again. Ting Mei, hurry and bring the medicine for your young mistress. This is the last dose." Her laughter was laced with malice and a mocking tone. Once she takes this final remedy, she can return home. The chilling undertone of her words lingered in the air. "Indeed, cousin." Ting Mei, having regained her composure, entered once more from the shadows, holding the medicine jar at the doorway. Chapter 2. The Poison of Betrayal. Had I truly been poisoned for so long? I was not suffering from a grave illness, but had been ensnared by another's treachery? Did my husband, the man I had devoted myself to supporting, the esteemed Duke of Scorned, Zhou Jingxi, know of this? As my strength waned and my limbs grew colder, a heavy, suffocating malaise pressed upon my chest, leaving Feng Zui breathless. "I do not wish to die. I have yet to settle my scores. I cannot be vanquished by a petty villain." Feng Zui gasped for air, striving to widen her darkened eyes, which overflowed with crimson tears. These blood tears traced down her cheeks, cascading on her neck and staining the jade pendant she wore. Gradually, the pendant absorbed the blood, emitting a faint, eerie glow. The pendant, carved from jade, was cherished by the ancients not merely for its value, but for its noble character. As Ting Mei drew nearer, Feng Zui's eyes widened in recognition. The water-green silhouette before her was unmistakable. Though her features were obscured, after years of companionship, she knew it was her devoted maid Ting Mei. The water-green silk jacket Ting Mei wore was a fine fabric bestowed upon her by the emperor at the time of Feng Zui's marriage, a gift she had given to her maid out of fondness. What had I done to betray Ting Mei? How could she conspire with outsiders against me? No wonder I had been deteriorating after consuming this potion. "Miss, are you not curious? Why is your complexion darkened, your hair thinned, and your strength diminished? I have been adding this delightful concoction to your food and medicine for over a year now. You have always loved the red fruit, so I ensured it was plentiful in your meals, allowing the fruit to bask in your good fortune. Ha ha." Ting Mei observed the gaunt figure before her, a sense of satisfaction swelling within her. How dare she favor that foolish, pig-like girl, red fruit, while disregarding a clever and capable maid like herself? Her father was a scholar, the only one in the village, yet she was forced to serve as a mere maid? Why not allow her to marry the duke as a concubine? After all, aren't accompanying maids often concubines? Was it not fear of losing her husband's affection that held her back? Even red fruit, as dim-witted as a pig, received careful attention, treated as a beloved sister. Ting Mei seethed with resentment, her fingers trembling slightly around the medicine bowl. Suddenly, a sharp pain jolted Ting Mei from her thoughts. Her pupils dilated as she stared in disbelief at the black face of red fruit, mere inches away, filled with hatred, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Ting Mei's neck throbbed painfully from the bite inflicted by Honghua. Staggering, she discarded the medicine bowl in her grasp, clutching her throat while pushing against Honghua, desperately attempting to free herself from the vice-like grip. Yet, Honghua's eyes glinted crimson, reminiscent of a feral beast. Her arms encircled Ting Mei with an iron hold, teeth clattering ominously as she hissed, "You dare harm the young lady. I shall bite you to death." The ferocity in her gaze sent a shiver down Ting Mei's spine. Whether from fear or pain, her body trembled uncontrollably, crimson streams oozing from between her fingers pressed against her neck. The medicine bowl shattered upon the stone floor, splattering its contents all over Lu Dejiao. Incensed, Lu Dejiao surveyed the chaos, her gaze shifting to Feng Zui, who was crawling toward her. Feng Zui, unable to walk or see clearly, was nonetheless unable to conceal the hatred burning in her eyes. She hastily retreated behind her servants, speaking haughtily. Feng Zui, do not blame me. You ought to know that my cousin's heart belongs solely to me. He holds you in utter disdain. You worthless wretches, dispose of them at once. Was it true that Zhou Jingxi harbored such contempt for her? A sharp pang of anguish pierced Feng Zui's heart, akin to a needle's sting. Why? After all these years dedicated to Zhou Jingxi and the Xianda Marquis household, to learn that he despised her was unbearable. Consumed by fury, she felt herself restrained by several servants, her breath growing increasingly labored, her vision fading from blurriness to darkness. Her lips moved slightly, reciting 50 strings of the qin, each string a memory of youth. Zhuang Zhou's dream. Lost in the butterfly's dance, Wang Di's spring heart entrusted to the cuckoo. The moon over the vast sea weeps pearls of tears. The sun over Lantian warms the jade with mist. This sentiment awaits remembrance. Yet at that moment, it was already lost. As a solitary tear of blood slipped from the corner of her eye, Feng Zui, she ceased her struggles. Throughout her life, she had been woefully deceived by Zhou Jingxi. She felt immense hatred and an insatiable bitterness, her eyes wide open, blood tears flowing, as if to accuse the world of its injustice. Young lady, you cannot die. Please do not leave us. We have yet to avenge the master, the lady, and the young lords. Hongguo cried out in despair, her voice breaking, while at her feet lay Ting Mei, convulsing uncontrollably. Lu Dejiao pulled out a handkerchief to cover her mouth, coldly laughing. Good riddance. She was never worthy of my cousin, ha. At her words, Hongguo lunged at her like a wild beast, sending Lu Dejiao stumbling backward in fright. Several servants quickly subdued Hongguo, and without a glance, Lu Dejiao commanded, execute that wretched maid.
Chapter 3. Nightmares, Graveyards, and Men give me the staff of execution. Execution. The voice was shrill and piercing, jolting her awake. Her surroundings were engulfed in darkness, enveloped in an eerie silence. Where was she? Yes, she could still feel the pain in her chest, and her forehead was beaded with fine droplets of sweat. Was this the desolate graveyard on the outskirts? Moments ago, at the brink of life and death, her mind was awash with fragmented images. She seemed to see Hongguo being executed, her body crumpled and lifeless, while Lu Dejiao approached to kick Hongguo's lifeless form. In this impenetrable night, she and Hongguo had been wrapped in a straw mat and discarded in the desolate graveyard on the city's edge. Soon, wild dogs would arrive in packs, along with the scavenging vultures, feasting upon their remains. Thick mist swirled around, seemingly cloaking many figures within. At that moment, a voice pierced her thoughts. Is it you that the vulture is devouring? Who was speaking? Who was speaking? Fear gripped her as she turned to confront the source of the voice, only to be met with terror. It was another mass of mist, within which a man was enshrouded. If he could even be called a man. His visage was unrecognizable, his body pierced with feathered arrows, and atop his shoulder rested the head of a fierce tiger. Though his appearance was frightful, his voice was gentle as he reached out to her, saying, "It seems we share a path. You are truly unfortunate. I am indeed wretched. I have donned the garments of another's fortune. I am the ball hidden after the birds are gone, the dog boiled after the rabbits have perished. I have offered my sincere heart, only to have it trampled into the mud. I am so miserable, so very miserable." With these thoughts, she could no longer contain her anguish and began to weep uncontrollably, her face a canvas of tears and snot. She was so unfortunate, truly so unfortunate. After her father, the general, and several brothers fell in battle, her husband's family, the Xianda Marquis, turned against her mercilessly. Her husband, Zhou Jingxi, showed not a shred of the affection they had shared for a decade, casting her aside like a worn-out shoe, ultimately poisoning her. No longer could she maintain her gentle demeanor, her poise and grace. She cried out, as if to expel years of resentment and indignation. My lady, why do you weep? What troubles you? Is this a nightmare?" A tender voice emerged from the darkness. Upon hearing this familiar yet strange voice, Feng Zui's sobs abruptly ceased. This voice. She suddenly widened her eyes, and in the darkness, a pure white candle flickered to life, illuminating a face that appeared before Feng Zui. Her heart raced violently. She felt as though she could hear the thunderous beat within her chest. The face was so youthful, not merely young, but childlike. With a rosy complexion. It was Hong Ying, Hong Ying, Hong Ying. It was Hong Ying, who had grown up alongside her since childhood. Who had cared for her in the residence of the Xian the Marquis, who had fiercely protected her when she was trampled upon. And who had been cast into a well by the matriarch of the Xian the family, Zhou Jingxi's mother, where she languished for 3 days and nights. Hong Ying. Have we both turned into ghosts? She gently caressed Hong Ying's round, soft face, which bore a delicate fuss. It was quite amusing that in death, one shrank in size. Hong Ying shook her vigorously, her voice filled with urgency. My lady, please do not frighten me. What has happened to you? Someone, quickly. The door swung open, and the sound of hurried footsteps echoed as several candles were lit in the room. Upon seeing the group before her, Feng Zui smiled with relief. Her father, mother, 3 elder brothers, and several familiar household servants were indeed gathered with her in this underground realm. How wonderful, how blissful. My child, are you haunted by nightmares? Lady Feng anxiously touched Feng Zui's forehead. Her beauty was ethereal, like a delicate willow swaying in the breeze, yet her eyes were filled with concern. Mother, I miss you so much. Feng Zui leaped into her embrace, sobbing. Oh dear child, are you worried about going to your aunt's in a few days, feeling frightened? Lady Feng smiled helplessly, gently patting her daughter's back. Let me tell you, I have procured a jade pendant for you, which will ensure your safety. I had intended to give it to you tomorrow, but it seems I shall present it to you today to suit your fears. With that, she produced a small red brocade box, intricately embroidered with incomprehensible patterns resembling talismans. Upon opening the box, a jade pendant, glistening with a deep green hue, lay quietly within. This was the very pendant that Feng Zui had worn until her last breath. Mother, I am wearing it. She reached for her neck, only to find it devoid of anything. Chapter 4. The jade pendant gifted by Mother. Oh, what are you wearing, my foolish child? Mother couldn't help but chuckle, gently stroking her head as she adorned her neck with the jade pendant. This pendant ensures safety, and it is accompanied by 2 vermilion beads, warding off evil and coming fears, to safeguard my child's well-being. Her voice was soft and gentle, a sound that had not graced her ears for many years, causing Feng Zui to be overwhelmed with tears once more. She gazed at her mother, then at the anxious Hong Ying behind her, and finally at her father, who stood at the doorway with a scruffy beard, flanked by her 3 brothers. Each brother bore a distinct expression. The eldest, Feng Zui, smiled with a hint of anxiety. The second brother, Feng Zui, grinned foolishly at her, and the youngest, Feng Zui, stuck out his tongue and silently pointed at his own cheek, teasingly declaring, crying face cat, shame, shame, shame. At the sight of him, tears glistening in her eyes, Feng Zui could not help but burst into laughter. Everyone turned their gaze towards Feng Zui, and upon witnessing his antics, their father, Feng Jinzhang, could not suppress a playful reprimand, delivering a light smack to his head, saying, You little rascal, practice an extra hour at the training grounds tomorrow. What? Father, no, please. Help me, elder brother. Feng Zui's face fell instantly, casting a desperate glance at his eldest brother. Feng Zui, ever gentle and unassuming, replied, Sweat more during practice, so you bleed less in battle. Tomorrow, I and the second brother will join you for an extra hour. Hearing his eldest brother's words, the youngest brother, Feng Zui, let out a wail of despair, clutching his head in frustration. Oh dear, is there no mercy left for me? Second brother, you must intervene. The second brother, Feng Zui, continued to smile foolishly, affectionately patting the youngest's head. Fear not, little brother, it will be all right. But is 1 hour sufficient? Shall we not extend it to 3 hours and have a little competition? I wish to see if you have improved. Observing the mournful expression on the youngest's face, Feng Zui finally laughed from the depths of her heart, thinking how wonderful it was. This might be the last dream of her life, a chance to reunite with her family and mend the regrets of the past decade. She nestled her head against her mother's embrace and fell into a deep slumber. Each time she drifted into dreams, she encountered that man, yet his features grew increasingly nebulous, fading like smoke. After 3 days and nights of such slumber, she finally accepted the reality. She had returned to 11 years prior, when she was but 16, and in the following year, she would be wed into the Scorned market. At this moment, she found herself in her home on the borders of Yanlian Mountain. preparing to be sent next month to her aunt's house in the capital for upbringing and to learn the manners befitting a bride of the Scorned Marquis. As she paced in the courtyard, she felt the frailty of her body. Merely walking a few steps left her breathless and exhausted. In her dreams, she repeatedly encountered that desolate graveyard and the man with a tiger's head on his shoulder. Who was he? In her previous life, though the daughter of a military family, she had been betrothed to the Scorned Marquis since childhood, aspiring to become a refined lady and a mistress of high society, dedicating herself to the study of the arts, music, and culinary skills. Her culinary skills were truly exceptional. I recall when she had just married, the Duke of Scorned, Zhou Jingxi, adored her cooking above all else. Despite having cooks and maids at his disposal, he delighted in the dishes she prepared with her own hands. For her to wash her hands and make soup for her husband was a task she cherished, fostering within her a blissful illusion of marital happiness. In ancient times, a noble young lady would hardly touch the water of spring, yet here she was, preparing meals for her beloved. A faint, ironic smile involuntarily graced her lips. As she unconsciously caressed the jade pendant adorning her neck, a sense of calm enveloped her, prompting her to stride purposefully around her courtyard. She resolved to strengthen her body. Otherwise, she would practice martial arts alongside her brothers, determined to defeat Liu Dejil the next time they met. She gritted her teeth in determination. Chapter 5. The art of martial practice transforms into dance. Father, I too wish to practice martial arts, exclaimed Feng Zui, resolute in her decision. The very next day, she ventured to the training grounds to seek out her father. The sky was a brilliant azure, the sun's rays piercingly bright, and the training field was adorned with targets made of golden straw and straw figures. The background music resonated with the haunting cries of Feng Zui's elder brother, Feng Zui, as he honed his skills. At that moment, she gazed up at her tall and imposing father, a warm feeling blossoming in her heart. Feng Jinjiang was the epitome of a martial artist, robust and towering, with unparalleled skills and a beard that seemed ready to burst with vigor. He looked at his delicate daughter, who bore no resemblance to him, with a bewildered expression. Sissy, you surely mean to say you wish to dance? Are you asking me to find a Western dancer to be your mentor? Perhaps we could invite Wu Chunji to be your teacher. She is renowned as the most graceful dancer along our border. No sooner had he spoken than Feng Zui dashed over. Father, we should indeed ask Wu Chunji to mentor my sister. She is the most exquisite dancer in our region. Feng Zui had heard tales of Wu Chunji, a legendary figure known for her breathtaking performances. In her previous life, she had never crossed paths with the dancer. However, she had learned of Wu Chunji's tragic fate. Although she was the most celebrated dancer in the border town, she only sold her art, never her body, gaining considerable fame and wealth before buying her own freedom and marrying a scholar. Yet, due to her humble origins, the scholar's family disdained her, allowing her only the status of a concubine. Once they had acquired her wealth, the scholar's family deceitfully sold her into a brothel, shattering her previous vow of dignity. Unable to bear the humiliation, Wu Chunji took her own life that very night, a fate that evokes deep sorrow. Meanwhile, that very scholar ascended the ranks, utilizing Wu Chunji's fortune to further his education and secure a government position, ultimately rising to the rank of an official. What was his name again? Ah, Long Wan Yuan. That despicable man. Alas, beauty often bears a heavy price. At this moment, Feng Zui found herself seated on the small stage of her home, captivated by the graceful movements of the woman in red dancing before her. Wu Chunji danced with composure, her movements both expansive and expressive, exuding elegance and charm. The crimson silk of her attire fluttered in the wind, as her continuous dance captivated Feng Zui completely. Indeed, learning to dance is a splendid endeavor. Unbeknownst to her, this fleeting thought would irrevocably alter Wu Chunji's destiny. Ouch, ouch, that hurts. Feng Zui, clad in a flowing white silk outfit with an orange-pink bodice, was practicing her backbends under Wu Chunji's guidance. She looked up at Wu Chunji, who appeared to be about 20 years old, possessing a serene beauty that was not overtly striking. Dressed in a delicate red garment, her slender waist was accentuated by a jeweled belt, and her figure was remarkably graceful. Miss Feng, your waist seems rather stiff and a bit thick, Wu Chunji remarked, her expression devoid of emotion, her voice somewhat coarse, contrasting sharply with her graceful demeanor. Feng Zui felt a flush of embarrassment, having spent most of her time sitting in practice of embroidery, writing, and painting. She had developed a slightly plump physique. The world is enamored with grace and beauty. In her desire to please Zhou Jingxi, she subjected herself to the torment of hunger, relentlessly depriving herself of nourishment until she became gaunt and frail, ultimately compromising her health. In the eyes of others, was she merely a laughingstock during that time? Fortunately, she later encountered a renowned physician who restored her vitality. Yet, her efforts could not mend the heart of Duke Xianda, Zhou Jingxi. Reflecting on this, she resolved to diligently adhere to Wu Chunji's guidance, striving to nurture her own body. This time, she vowed to care for herself, not for the sake of pleasing anyone. Chapter 6. The Lover of Wu Chunji. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Oh dear mother, I feel I cannot endure this any longer. The lamentations of Feng Zui echoed throughout the morning sky at the training grounds, where he was currently being reprimanded by his father. You little rascal. Your cries are so heart-wrenching that anyone might mistake me for your stepfather. Feng Jinzhang jested, landing a punch on Feng Zui's abdomen. Where has all your training gone? Feng Zui, having just entered the training grounds, was taken aback. A thought crossed her mind, causing her to furrow her brow as she inquired, Father, I have come to practice. Do I still need to assume the horse dance? Over the past months, Feng Zui had been dedicating her mornings to martial arts and her afternoons to dance, with both disciplines complementing and enhancing one another. As she began to assume the horse dance at the edge of the training grounds, Feng Zui approached, his face bearing the marks of a recent sparring match. Looking rather comical with his bruised visage, he playfully patted Feng Zui on the shoulder, causing her to stumble slightly. Brother, what are you doing? Feng Zui exclaimed, regaining her balance and playfully scolding her mischievous elder brother. Her feelings toward him were complex, blending sibling affection with a tinge of resentment. For his actions had caused a rift in their parents' relationship, leading to much misfortune thereafter. Ha ha ha! I merely wished to test the fruits of your training this past month. By the way, dear sister, you must diligently study your dance, for that Wu girl has found herself a suitor. I hear she is saving money to buy her freedom. Once she is free, she will no longer be able to instruct you in dance. Feng Zui casually conversed with Feng Zui. When did this happen? Feng Zui asked, astonished. When had Wu Chunji met the scholar who had brought her such suffering in her previous life? Was this current suitor the same one that had wronged her? Brother, could you possibly find out who Wu Yangzi's lover is? Feng Zui beseeched her elder brother. Feng Zui's mouth fell open in surprise. Sister, why are you so nosy? She is merely a courtesan. Why do you care? Is this suitor truly the one who caused her harm? After all, Wu Yangzi is like a mentor to me. I fear she may be deceived. Please help me investigate not just this man, but also his family background. I wish to know everything, Feng Zui implored, rubbing her hands together. Unable to resist her earnest plea and driven by his own curiosity, Feng Zui agreed to look into the matter but cautioned. The chances for these songstresses and dancers to find a suitable match are slim. Do not let Wu Yangzi miss her chance for redemption. Feng Zui felt a pang of sorrow. In her past life, as the daughter of a general, her fate had been dire. What power did she possess to alter another's destiny, especially that of a dancer? Suddenly, a realization struck her. While she may not be able to change Wu Yangzi's fate, there was one person whose destiny she might influence. Brother, could you take me out of the estate? I wish to go somewhere. Half an hour later, Feng Zui rode a robust chestnut steed, escorting a carriage as they departed from the general's residence. Miss, where are we headed? Inside the carriage, Hong Ying felt a sense of unease as she gazed at Feng Zui, who sat across from her. Hong Ying was puzzled as to why, after that nightmarish day, the young lady had become so different, having spent several days in a daze. Previously, Feng Zui would confine herself to her chamber, indulging in painting, embroidery, and culinary pursuits. Now, however, she ventured outside daily. Not only to learn those lowly dances but also to practice martial arts in the training grounds, even insisting that Hong Ying join her in these endeavors. This was truly concerning. What would happen in the future if she married and the whole family disapproved? We must seek someone out to rescue another, declared Feng Zui. Chapter 7. To rescue a person, my dear girl, I find myself increasingly perplexed by you. Hong Ying silently lamented within her heart. 3 years her junior, she had grown up alongside the young lady. In her unwavering dedication, she had resolutely decided at the tender age of 19 never to marry, vowing to remain by the young lady's side, to protect her always. Observing the anxious expression on her face, Feng Zui gently patted her hand in a gesture of comfort. In her past life, Hong Ying had constantly shielded her, akin to a hen safeguarding her chicks, sacrificing her own marital prospects until her late 20s. There had been suitors from the Marquis' household wishing to wed her, yet fearing the loss of her protection, she had steadfastly declined them all. Such a commendable Hong Ying. And yet, after the complete annihilation of the general's estate, Feng Zui had been forced to witness her being pushed into a well by the mother of Marquis Scorned. The agony that tore through her heart was akin to being shredded apart, the pain of her fingers scraping against the well's edge drawing blood. A torment that still haunted her, rendering her life unbearable. You are a harbinger of calamity. It is you who has dragged down Hong Ying. It is you who has caused her demise. An image of a young guard with an enraged visage and sorrowful eyes materialized before her. She learned only after Hong Ying's death that the guard named Zhou Man had long sought her hand in marriage, and Hong Ying had harbored feelings for him. Yet she had persistently rejected him for Feng Zui's sake. I am indeed a bringer of misfortune. Feng Zui gazed up at the ceiling of the carriage. Her eyes dim with pain, striving to conceal her tears from Hong Ying. I must endure. I must be strong this time. I shall ensure Hong Ying can marry and bear children without a lifetime of worry for me. Suddenly, her trembling hand was grasped by a warm, gentle touch. And Hong Ying's voice resonated, My lady, do not fear. I shall always be by your side. She clasped Hong Ying's hands tightly. Hot tears cascading down her cheeks. Hong Ying, this time, let me protect you. You must be well. Though the meaning of her words eluded her, Hong Ying continued to offer gentle solace. After an hour had passed, the carriage finally halted in a village nestled in a mountain hollow outside the city. This village was home to impoverished tenants' fruit tree village. Feng Zui regarded the name at the village's entrance, puzzled as to why her sister had ventured to such a place. As Feng Zui and Hong Ying disembarked from the carriage, Feng Zui realized her grave error. This fruit tree village was the homeland of Hongguo. Yet when she first encountered Hongguo, it had already been reduced to a charred wasteland. Years prior, the village had been ravaged by mountain bandits, who, after plundering, had set fire to the village, leaving it utterly destroyed. Hongguo had narrowly escaped, but a scar the size of an egg marked her forehead. Her father and brothers had taken the few surviving children back to their household. Due to her disfigurement, Hongguo was often ostracized by the maids in the manor. And out of pity, Feng Zui had summoned her to the courtyard to serve as a lowly maid. Unexpectedly, when she found herself devoid of familial support and all the maidservants had deserted her, it was only that simple-minded, coarse-looking Hongguo who steadfastly remained by her side, offering companionship and protection. Without Hongguo, she would likely have been ground down to dust long ago. In this lifetime, she yearned to assist Hongguo, to shield her village from the ravages of banditry, ensuring that she would no longer bear scars from her wounds. However, had none of this transpired, Hongguo would naturally reside in her village, living blissfully alongside her family, and their paths would never intertwine again. Contemplating this, Feng Zui felt a twinge of melancholy in her heart. Chapter 8. The origin of Hongguo. Feng Zui stood hesitantly at the village entrance with her companions. It dawned on her that the name Hongguo had been bestowed upon the child only after entering the general's residence. She was, in truth, unaware of the child's real name. The village comprised about 40 to 50 households, and she did not know to which family Hongguo belonged. It was early November, a time she recalled vividly as the month when bandits had once raided and set fires, though the details had faded with time. Third brother, could you possibly send someone to keep watch over this village and protect the villagers? Feng Zui understood that this request was somewhat excessive. Yet Feng Zui still consented to leave a few guards in the vicinity, instructing them to report any disturbances to the general's residence. A sense of reluctance enveloped her. In the twilight of her life, Hongguo represented her last warmth and solace, an inseparable part of her existence. Yet, in that moment, she realized how little attention she had paid to Hongguo, even failing to know her original name. In the vast sea of humanity, she would ultimately be severed from Hongguo, bidding farewell to her past self. Those 10 years felt like an arduous pilgrimage, a grand dream. She closed her eyes, and the scenes from that fateful day appeared vividly before her. The doctor from the Marquis' residence had diagnosed her with a grave illness. Reflecting upon it now, she understood that the affliction stemmed from the poison administered by Timei. The matriarch of the Marquis' household had ordered her to reside in a dilapidated and damp-side courtyard for recuperation. At that time, the steward, Mama Chui, inquired, "Who is willing to accompany the young lady?" Everyone recoiled, and only Timei stepped forward, though her intentions were to continue administering poison. "Is no one willing to go? Is no one willing to go?" The other maids and servants shrank back, not daring to lift their heads. Perhaps they feared sharing in their mistress's misfortune or contracting her illness, or perhaps both. She lay in bed, coughing incessantly. Mama Chui glanced at her, a hint of mockery in her voice. "My lady, see how they are reluctant to accompany you. I am willing to serve the young lady. A hearty voice emerged from behind the group of maids. Who is speaking? Mama Chui, taken aback, felt her nose flare with indignation. Come forth. A robust maid pushed through the crowd, her round face framed by large eyes, rosy cheeks adorned with youthful plumpness, though a scar from a burn marred her beauty. She declared boldly, I am Hongguo, and I will not leave. I hail from the general's residence, and I wish to care for our young lady. I am willing to go. At that moment, lying in bed, Feng Zui was startled by those words, a pang of sorrow enveloping her heart. The maids who had accompanied her from the general's residence had either perished or departed. Some were so fearful of being associated with the general's household that they believed they had become utterly alone. Yet, unexpectedly, a young maid stood forth, proclaiming her allegiance to the general's residence. Standing at the entrance of the Fruit Grove village, Feng Zui silently vowed, Hongguo, in a past life you guarded me. In this life, I too shall protect you from this calamity. May you find enduring happiness and stability in this quaint village throughout your lifetime. As the fiery sun gradually sinks in the western horizon, Feng Zui urged, let us return. Rest assured, I shall leave guards here. Very well, Feng Zui replied, preparing to board the carriage. However, in the distance, there seemed to be faint, haunting howls echoing through the air. This is troubling. Wolves are near, remarked an elder guard standing nearby. Chapter 9. Following the young lady to hunt wolves. Are there truly wolves? Surely, fortune cannot be so cruel. In her previous life, Feng Zui had never encountered such a predicament, and a wave of anxiety washed over her. Could it be that before even marrying into the Scorned Marquis, she would fall prey to wolves? Sister, you must flee. We will hold them off for a while. Feng Zui was genuinely anxious. Although he and the guards were skilled in combat, he could not afford to let his sister come to harm. Feng Zui remained where she stood, her gaze fixed intently on the village before them, a foreboding sense stirring within her. Third brother, do you hear that? Is that the howl of a wolf coming from the village? What? A chill crept down Feng Zui's spine. By the sound of it, there were not just 3 or 5 wolves, but at least a dozen. If they invaded the village, the villagers would surely be in grave danger. Third brother, did you bring weapons? Feng Zui inquired, her eyes igniting with determination. Feng Zui swallowed hard. I have my waist knife and bow and arrows. Then let us proceed and rescue those in peril. Feng Zui declared, retrieving a slightly smaller longbow and a quiver of arrows from her carriage, expertly slinging the quiver across her back. Next, she produced a short sword from the carriage and secured it at her waist. Behind her, Hong Ying also retrieved a curved blade adorned with a beautiful red tassel from the carriage. Feng Zui was at a loss for words, puzzled as to why his sister and Hong Ying were clad in martial attire today. It seemed they had come prepared for a fight. What had initially been a mission to combat bandits had transformed into a quest to hunt wolves. His sister appeared to have undergone a transformation. With a rallying cry, Feng Zui called out, brothers, let us follow the young lady to hunt the wolves. This winter, each of us shall have a wolfskin blanket. The guards responded in unison, their voices resounding through the night. We are coming. Following the young lady to hunt wolves. Hong Ying could not help but roll her eyes. A young lady of high standing going to hunt wolves. Truly unparalleled in history. You are remarkable, indeed. As she chattered on, she trailed closely behind Feng Zui, guarding her. Listening to Hong Ying's incessant prattle, a smile graced Feng Zui's lips. How had she never noticed before how talkative Hong Ying was? Resembling a little old lady with her constant chatter. The night deepened, the moon hanging full and bright, casting its silvery light over the quaint village. Within a dilapidated courtyard, something glimmered eerily green in the darkness, resembling a pair of peculiar green lanterns. It was a black wolf. The wolf stood in the center of the courtyard, its head bowed as it gnawed on the carcass of a guard dog. Suddenly, its ears perked up, and it lifted its head in alertness as a stone struck its skull, eliciting a pained howl. Infuriated by the sudden pain, the black wolf's nostrils flared as it followed a scent towards a dilapidated wooden house in the courtyard. Blocked by the door, it opened its jaws, baring sharp teeth as it gnawed at the wooden barrier. Finding little success, it began to claw at the door with its razor-sharp claws, leaving deep gashes etched into the wood. At that moment, 2 children trembled within the confines of the house, a girl of about 10 and a boy of 7 or 8. Come now, it's all your fault. Why did you shoot it with a slingshot? The boy grumbled, visibly displeased. But, it is devouring a mao. I. After struggling for a long while, the girl could no longer contain her sobs. Only the dog, a mao, could provide her with solace. The boy kicked her hard and said, I warned you, let it bite you first. With all that flesh of yours, it will be satiated and will leave me alone. Chapter 10. In times of desperation, the girl named Libel turned to glance at the boy, remaining silent as she tightened her grip on the slingshot in her hand. Inhaling deeply to stifle the tears welling in her eyes, she then opened a cloth pouch at her waist, quietly counting the small stones within. Outside, the wooden door creaked ominously as the ferocious wolf clawed at it, sending chills down her spine. Unable to contain himself any longer, the boy forcefully pushed the girl towards the door, exclaiming, You go out, hurry and let the wolf devour you. My parents can find me a more beautiful bride. Libel stumbled, falling to the floor of the main room, her gaze following the boy as he sprinted back to the eastern bedroom, shutting the door behind him with a decisive click of the latch. Despair enveloped her. Sold into this household as a child bride at the tender age of 6 or 7, she had never been regarded as a person. She toiled at the most grueling tasks yet often went to bed hungry. In her spare moments, she would gather bird eggs, trap wild rabbits, catch chickens, and forage for wild fruits. This diet, albeit meager, had allowed her to grow tall and strong, honing her innate foraging skills. The slingshot she wielded was typically used for hunting rabbits and birds, having once brought down a wild goat. This was her first encounter with a wolf. She dashed into the adjacent kitchen, retrieving a heavy, crude chopping knife. She contemplated barricading the wooden door with a cupboard. Yet all the furniture was locked away in the bedroom, and her reticence prevented her from asking the boy for assistance. In this dire moment, with no one to rely upon, she resolved to depend solely on herself. She had nothing left to lose. With a resounding crash, the wooden door collapsed, sending a cloud of dust into the air. The black wolf lunged towards the small figure in the main room. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced its right eye. As Libel exhaled, having accurately struck the wolf with her first stone, she discarded the slingshot and raised the chopping knife, ready to deliver a decisive blow to the beast. However, the wolf was quicker. Despite its injured eye, its razor-sharp claws slashed across her forehead, knocking her to the ground. As she lay there, she stared into the gaping maw of the wolf, its menacing yellow teeth glistening, and felt the foul, hot breath wafting from its mouth. Clenching her jaw, she held her breath and swung the knife towards the wolf's back, closing her eyes to brace for the inevitable agony. Tick, tick, time dripped away. Yet the anticipated pain never came. Hesitantly, she opened her eyes to find droplets of wolf blood splattered across her face. Then, she beheld a figure lifting the wolf and tossing it aside. Through the crimson haze, she saw a woman standing at the doorway, poised and robust, a bow and arrow slung across her back, as if a celestial being had descended to her rescue. Libel glanced at the massive wolf, an arrow protruding from its head. Clearly the handiwork of the woman before her. It dawned upon her that this woman had saved her. Against all odds, she had survived the jaws of the ferocious wolf. The girl Libel watched as the woman approached her step by step. The woman possessed a slender figure and exquisite beauty, her hair slightly disheveled. She bent down, scrutinizing Libel for a moment, while Libel, puzzled, met her gaze, feeling captivated by the woman's strikingly dark and luminous eyes. The woman was Feng Zui. Her crimson lips parting slightly. Your forehead is still injured, but fortunately, it does not seem too severe. I doubt it will leave a scar. Her voice was extraordinarily melodious, enchanting Libel, who then observed as the woman extended her hand towards her. Hongguo, I have finally found you. Chapter 11. Terrified, the youngster Libel stood dazedly before the woman, who possessed a striking beauty and bright eyes indeed, the most exquisite lady that Hongguo had ever encountered. A sense of inexplicable familiarity enveloped Hongguo, prompting her to unconsciously grasp the woman's hand. The hand was soft and warm, bestowing upon her an endless sense of reassurance. Suddenly, she was reminded of her own dirty hands, fearing that she might soil this ethereal being before her, and she instinctively attempted to withdraw her hand. Yet, the woman's gentle grip tightened, refusing to let her go. Feng Zui observed the girl before her, who appeared to be around 10 years old, reminiscent of her first encounter with Hongguo. However, instead of a burn scar on her forehead, there were 2 bloody claw marks, as if left by a wolf. Little did she expect that in the second household where she had slain wolves, she would find Hongguo again, and even save her. Having just learned that this girl was now named Sun Libel, she was suddenly interrupted by a noise from the bedroom door, as a 7 or 8-year-old boy peered out curiously. His skin was dark, and his eyes round. Was this Hongguo no, Libel's brother? Feng Zui, feeling a sense of affection for the boy, smiled and said, Little brother, do not be afraid. The wolves have been slain, and you are safe now. The boy was momentarily taken aback by the beauty and grace of this woman. He sniffled quietly, standing silently behind Lai Bao. Feng Zui inquired, "What is your name, little brother?" Zhang Daxi, the boy replied. Feng Zui found it puzzling that the siblings bore different surnames. "Aren't you siblings by blood?" she asked. "No, she is my wife. Working at home to serve me, my parents purchased her, and we cannot support her for free," Zhang Daxi declared confidently. "What? So, this was not Honggu's brother, but her little husband." Upon hearing Zhang Daxi's words, Feng Zui furrowed her brow, her heart filled with discontent. Could such a family treat Honggu well? However, since Honggu's family was still present, she could not hastily take her away. Feeling somewhat helpless, Feng Zui decided to have someone remain to look after them. "Leave someone here to watch over them. We shall continue hunting wolves," Feng Zui instructed, leading Hong in toward another household where anguished cries could clearly be heard. "Fairy, I wish to join you in hunting the wolves," unexpectedly piped up Lai Bao. Her voice a mixture of timidity and courage. "I have a slingshot." Recalling the wolf with one blinded eye, Feng Zui nodded and said, "Very well. Let us go together." After slaying several wolves and rescuing some villagers, they arrived at a courtyard constructed of blue stones deep within the village. An elderly man with white hair was thrusting a fork at a wolf, which was viciously tearing into a donkey. The donkey, clearly irritable, incessantly kicked at the wolf. Amidst this assault from both the old man and the donkey, the wolf found itself overwhelmed, yelping in agony from the fork's jabs and the donkey's kicks. Witnessing this scene, Feng Zui, Hong Ying, and Lai Bao exchanged glances and could not help but stifle their laughter. "The old man is quite remarkable," remarked Feng Zui. "That donkey is quite fierce." Lai Bao stifled a laugh. "Lai Bao, why not give it a try?" encouraged Feng Zui. Lai Bao took out his small slingshot and with a swift motion, accurately struck the wolf in its eye. The wolf, in agony, could not help but lash out, attempting to claw at the old man. Just then, in a flash, an arrow pierced the wolf's forehead. "Oh dear, that certainly startled this old man," exclaimed the white-haired elder, his voice trembling. "Couldn't you have simply shot an arrow instead of first tossing a stone?" Chapter 12. The Old Man Kokong Ao. "It appears that we have 3 gallant heroes and a young lady here." The elderly man with white hair turned to Feng Zui and her companions, bowing deeply in gratitude. "Oh, is this not the jubilant young bride?" He gazed at Lai Bao with a smile. "Oh sir, your donkey may ruin your wolfskin blanket." Feng Zui chuckled as she glanced behind the old man. The donkey had risen, vigorously kicking at the lifeless wolf. "Oh dear, stop it now, Tao. You are quite mischievous. Look at your wounds, they must hurt terribly. Come here, let me apply some medicine for you." The old man led the donkey aside and entered his sturdy house, constructed from blue stone slabs, which was more robust than most in the village. He soon emerged, holding a small white porcelain bottle. Feng Zui observed as he poured some yellow ointment from the bottle, applying it to the donkey's wounds. Gradually, the bleeding from the gashes on the donkey's back ceased, showing signs of healing. "This medicine appears quite effective," Feng Zui remarked, glancing at Lai Bao, who, in her haste, had neglected her own forehead wound, which was still oozing blood. Grasping Lai Bao's hand, she approached the elder. "Oh sir, is your medicine truly effective for treating injuries? Might I trouble you to apply some on my sister as well? Perhaps you could sell me a little." The old man looked up, momentarily taken aback. "Is it you?" "Me? Do you know me?" Feng Zui inquired, puzzled, as she did not recognize the elder before her. "Do not worry, you have saved both me and Tao. Allow me to gift you a new bottle." The old man regarded her intently for a moment, perhaps recognizing a resemblance, then sighed and returned to his stone house, retrieving another white porcelain bottle to present to Feng Zui. "Thank you, old sir." She accepted the bottle, carefully administering the ointment to Lai Bao's wounds, then handed the porcelain vessel to Lai Bao, advising, "Remember to apply the medicine properly. This time, we must avoid any scars." Lai Bao felt the cool, delicate touch of Feng Zui's fingertips on her forehead, filling her with a profound sense of happiness. She gazed at Feng Zui, admiration shining in her eyes. She could not fathom why Feng Zui emphasized this time, but it mattered not. This woman was like a celestial being, and whatever she said was undoubtedly correct. The old man observed them, softly murmuring to himself, how could they resemble each other so closely? He then asked, "May I inquire about your name, young lady? Who are your parents?" "Greetings, old sir. I am Feng Zui, daughter of General Feng Jinzhan. Do you know my father?" She wondered, suspecting that this elder might be an acquaintance of her father. Feng Jinzhong, so it is his daughter, the old man mused. I am Kong. Pleased to meet you, Miss Feng. It appears you truly are an acquaintance of my father, Feng Zui replied with a smile. My father has been at the general's residence recently. You are welcome to visit us and reminisce about old times. Very well. I shall certainly take you up on that when time permits. Thank you, Miss Feng. The old man responded with a warm smile. Feng Zui, accompanied by Hong Ying and Lai Bao, departed from the old man's courtyard. As he observed their retreating figures, the old man gently patted his donkey, seemingly conversing with himself. Or perhaps addressing the donkey. Ah Tao, do you think she bears such a striking resemblance to her? Could she truly be the one? The night was vast and interminable. The whispers of the wind delicate, and the moonlight shimmered like silver upon water, yet no one answered him. Chapter 13. Cease your actions after a night of relentless toil. As dawn broke, Feng Zui and her brother Feng Zui reunited, despite the fatigue etched on their faces and the bloodshot eyes born of the night's battles. Their spirits soared with an invigorating energy. Oh, dear sister, today was truly exhilarating. Feng Zui exclaimed heartily as he approached Feng Zui. Do you have any idea how many ferocious wolves we vanquished? A staggering 36. Although the villagers suffered from grievous injuries, they had all survived. Armed with bows and long knives, the few guards he brought sustained minimal injuries. And their near-zero casualty rate in both slaying wolves and rescuing lives filled him with immense pride. The 7 or 8 guards behind him wore expressions of sheer triumph as they directed the villagers in boiling water and busily skinning the wolves. Each of them took a wolf pelt for themselves, leaving the remainder for the villagers to use for treating the wounded and repairing homes ravaged by the wolf pack. Ever doting on his sister, Feng Zui approached her with one of the pelts in hand. Sister, I have prepared a wolf pelt for our parents and our 2 brothers. This silver wolf pelt is exquisite. It is for you. Feng Zui examined the wolf pelt closely. Its silvery gray fur shimmered brilliantly, unmarred by any scars. Thank you, third brother. She replied eagerly. Although General Feng Jinzhong held a prestigious title, he was neither greedy nor self-serving, often providing assistance to wounded soldiers and the families of the fallen. As such, the general's residence was merely a faiade of wealth, lacking in true abundance. This is for father. The arrow here must be your handiwork, dear sister. Given that the fletching is red, Feng Zui remarked as he revealed a black wolf pelt, taken from the formidable black wolf of the red fruit family. This particular wolf was large, and its pelt was correspondingly expensive, gleaming like satin in the sunlight. Feng Zui gazed at this trophy, envisioning how pleased her father would be. And a smile crept across her face. However, memories of her brothers perishing in battle years hence, and her mother succumbing to despair, flooded her mind. Her smile gradually faded, replaced by a dull ache in her heart. While she could alter the fate of Hongguo, she pondered whether she could truly change the destinies of her parents and brothers, as well as her own. She gazed toward the rising sun in the east, straightened her back, and clenched her fists. The road ahead remained long. Yet she resolved to grow stronger. As for her former husband, the Duke of Shuanda, Zhou Jinxi, she vowed never to repeat her past mistakes by marrying him again. Lost in her thoughts, she was suddenly jolted back to reality by the sounds of shouting and scolding nearby. You wretched girl! How dare you leave your husband alone at home while you frolic about? I'll beat you to death. A burly peasant woman brandished a branch, striking a girl who was none other than Hongguo. The girl shielded her head and face with her hands, curling into a ball, silent and submissive, accustomed to such abuse. A man nearby said nothing, merely chuckling as he watched the peasant woman strike, occasionally kicking Hongguo. The little boy, Zhang Dashi, the husband of Lai Bao, was shouting loudly from the side, hit her, parents. It's all her fault. She nearly got me bitten by a wolf. The trio was wildly gesticulating as they berated Lai Bao. Feng Zui, filled with indignation, exclaimed, Stop it. Cease this at once. Chapter 14. What are you worth? Yet the couple completely disregarded them. Since she and Feng Zui were out for personal reasons, Feng Zui and Hong Ying were clad in ordinary attire, while Feng Zui and the guards appeared to be nothing more than a group of hunters in simple garments. What do you think you are? Daring to meddle in our family affairs? Zhang Dashi's parents scoffed. Seeing their indifference, Feng Zui remained taciturn, stepping forward to deliver a swift kick to the peasant woman, asserting, Young master never strikes a woman, but you are an exception. Zhang Dashi and his father were poised to confront him. Yet they were intimidated back by the menacing glares of several guards. Humph, cowards who prey on the weak. Feng Zui and Hong Ying approached to help Lai Bao to her feet. Feng Zui gazed into her eyes and inquired, Lai Bao, would you like to come with me? Upon uttering this question, she found it somewhat ludicrous. In that moment, to Lai Bao, she was merely a stranger, was she not? How could a young girl possibly follow an unfamiliar person? I would. Lai Bao's clear voice responded, her eyes sparkling with hope. Observing Lai Bao's youthful visage and the scabbed wound on her forehead, Feng Zui felt as though she glimpsed the reflection of a past life in Lai Bao. And a genuine smile blossomed from within her. Excellent. From now on, we shall be family. This is Sister Hong Yin. I wish to give you a new name, would you accept? I would. Then, starting today, you shall be named Hongguo. In a fleeting moment, she was transported back to a prior existence, where a similar exchange had transpired in the courtyard of the general's residence. From this day forth, you are a member of the general's household. No one shall mock or bully you because of this scar. Henceforth, you shall be known as Hongguo. As the past and present began to intertwine, the unwavering companionship of a previous life transformed into a bond that would endure through life and death in this one. You dream sweetly. This girl is my son's child bride, you shall not take her. Zhang Dashi's parents erupted in fury from the sidelines. Ah! And there as this matter yet unresolved. In a past life, their family perished in a great fire, thus avoiding such disputes. She turned to the couple, puzzled, and asked, "Weren't you home last night?" Zhang Dashi's parents were taken aback, not anticipating her inquiry. They exchanged glances and replied, "We went into the mountains last night to hunt for game to supplement our household." "You can hunt?" Feng Zui found the couple's demeanor somewhat peculiar. Though she could not pinpoint the source of her discomfort, perhaps she was simply being overly sensitive. Suppressing this thought, she asked, "How much did you pay for this child bride?" "I can offer a bit more." She would not mention doubling the sum. Her silver was not easily acquired. And there was no reason to extend generosity to such despicable individuals. "We spent 100 taels on her." "Yes, exactly 100. Zhang Dashi's mother quickly interjected. Feng Zui and her companions were rendered speechless. 100 taels. Why not go rob a bank? In this day and age, hiring a sturdy laborer as a servant cost no more than a dozen taels. And a child bride of such appearance should be valued at no more than 70 or 80 taels. Feng Zui remarked, "Your nonsensical ramblings deserve a slap." No sooner had her words escaped her lips than Hong Yin delivered 2 resounding slaps across the woman's face. The woman, momentarily taken aback, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh dear! You've committed murder. I cannot bear this." "Silence! Hand over the contract of servitude to me, and considering the years of sustenance, I shall compensate you with double. And you may procure another." Feng Zui, unwilling to engage further in their quarrel, acquiesced and provided the promised sum. Feng Zui exchanged glances with her, prompting the 2 attendants nearby to shove the man towards his home to retrieve the contract of servitude. Chapter 15. I shall protect you well. In a brief moment, 2 guards returned, escorting Zhang Dashi's father and presenting a yellowed contract to Feng Zui. 3 or 4 taels of silver. Did you not just mention 100 taels? Feng Zui chuckled in exasperation. I shall offer you 6 taels. We shall take the child with us. Absolutely not. We have raised her. Zhang Dashi's mother interjected. Sell her. Sell her. Buy me another daughter-in-law as lovely as she. Suddenly, Zhang Dashi, who had remained silent, shouted, pointing at Feng Zui, insisting on acquiring a daughter-in-law like her. What business is that of yours? Zhang Dashi's father struck Zhang Dashi sharply on the head, the sound echoing loudly. This blow silenced Zhang Dashi. He dared not cry out, only managing to stifle his tears with quiet sobs. Observing this family dynamic, Feng Zui felt an inexplicable sense of strangeness. It seemed that the couple held little affection for their only son, Zhang Dashi. She proposed, 8 taels then. Let us not argue further. It is not an insignificant sum. It is sufficient for you to purchase another, with some left over for household expenses. Ah! Do we lack that little silver? Zhang Dashi's mother was about to retort. But Zhang Dashi's father tugged at her sleeve, compelling her to swallow her words. Very well, we shall heed this lady's words. Thank you, milady. Zhang Dashi's father forced a smile as he accepted Feng Zui's purse of coins, and in the presence of the village elder, he handed over the contract of sale for the child to Feng Zui. With the matter resolved, Feng Zui exhaled a long sigh. As if a great weight had been lifted from her heart, she gazed at the child in front of her, now known as Hongguo, smiled, and beckoned both her and Hong Yin to join her in the carriage. Henceforth, Hong Yin shall be my sister, and Hongguo shall be my younger sister. We shall be sworn sisters, and you are no longer my servants. Both Hong Yin and Hongguo were taken aback, quickly protesting, We cannot accept such a title. Hong Yin replied, I have accompanied the young lady since childhood. You have treated me with such kindness, speaking gently and never resorting to scolding. The provisions and rewards I have received far exceed those of most servants. To be sworn sisters with you is truly beyond propriety. Hong Guo, more straightforward, declared. The fairy saved my life. You are my benefactor. I wish to follow you for a lifetime, serving and protecting you. Feng Zui thought to herself. It was not I who saved you. It was you who preserved my life in a past existence, caring for me and sacrificing your own lives for me. You are my true benefactors. They say a husband and wife are one, yet in the end, the so-called husband, Zhou Jinxi, cast me aside like refuse, allowing me to be humiliated and trampled upon. Only you two remained by my side. Her pleas fell on deaf ears, and she resolved to treat these two well in the future. In the days to come, she vowed she would no longer be alone. She would protect them, ensuring they would not suffer the wretched fate of their past lives. She would see to it that they lived well, enjoying abundant happiness, and each day would be filled with joy. As for herself, she prepared to embrace a solitary old age. The saying goes, a single misstep may lead to eternal regret. Turning back, one finds a century has passed. Once having gazed upon the vast ocean, one cannot be satisfied with mere water. Apart from Mount Wu, no clouds can compare. She has resolutely decided to forsake love and passion in this lifetime, to accumulate a bit more wealth, and to safeguard her parents, brothers, and the two foolish girls in the carriage. This, she believes, is sufficient for her life. Leaning against the shoulder of Hong Yin, she drifts into a peaceful slumber, her jade pendant around her neck radiating a gentle glow. Chapter 16. The Maiden's Duel. At this very moment, Feng Zui's heart brimmed with satisfaction. Yet it was still far from sufficient. Her next undertaking was to orchestrate a grand disruption, specifically to thwart her own betrothal. She would absolutely not marry the Duke of Xianda, Zhou Jinxi. With her eyes closed, the visage of Zhou Jinxi, the heir to the Duke of Xianda, materialized before her. In those days, he was still but a young scion. Tall and athletic, the youthful Zhou Jinxi possessed an undeniable handsomeness. Though the Duke's household prided itself on martial prowess, by Zhou Jinxi's generation, the practice of martial arts had waned considerably. He had secured a nominal post through connections, contributing nothing of merit, merely maintaining the family's legacy. Reflecting upon it now, several of his elder brothers were far more capable and accomplished. What, indeed, had drawn her to him back then? The carriage, under the escort of Feng Zui and her guards, rode into the city. After a long day, all were weary and, upon returning to the estate, they sought rest. Feng Zui instructed Hong Yin to arrange for Hong Guo to occupy a separate room adjacent to Hong Yin's. Only first-rate maids were afforded private quarters, while second-rate maids shared rooms with one another, and third-rate maids were grouped in threes. Next year, Feng Zui was to wed into the illustrious Duke of Xianda's household in the capital, a place of unparalleled splendor. Presently, the Duke's family enjoyed the favor of the court, flourishing like a lavish tapestry, ablaze with prosperity. The heir, Zhou Jinxi, was merely 2 years her senior and was rumored to be both erudite and martial, possessing striking good looks. At this moment, only Hong Yin, a first-rate maid, accompanied Feng Zui, and it was certain that another first-rate maid would be selected from the second-rate ranks to accompany her as part of her dowry. In many minds, this accompanying maid would be perceived as a concubine to the Duke's heir, potentially rising to the status of a favored consort. A throng of second-rate maids were fiercely vying for the coveted position of first-rate maid, yet none anticipated that Hong Guo would arrive and immediately occupy this esteemed single chamber, inciting envy and resentment among many. In the courtyard where the maids resided, a few off-duty maids were engaged in washing clothes. A maid, around 16 or 17, with a delicate countenance, sat listlessly beside them, cracking sunflower seeds, shells strewn about the ground. Nearby, a slender young maid wielded a broom, having just finished sweeping, yet, as soon as she tied it up, the delicate maid scattered the remnants once more. The timid young maid could only muster the courage to sweep again, not daring to utter a word. Ting Mei, are you not being a bit excessive? Qin Zhao sweeps once, and you scatter it again. Is that not a bit much? A similarly aged maid protested. Ting Mei lazily lifted her eyelids to glance at her, replying slowly, Ting Xiang, are you not feeling the same discontent? A big foolish girl drops from the heavens and claims the position of first-rate maid. I'm merely enjoying some seeds to alleviate my frustration. What of it? Ting Xiang, indignant, retorted, I aspire to ascend to a first-rate maid, but not like you, yearning to become the heir's concubine without a shred of dignity. If you are not chosen, Then so be it. One must still perform their duties well. Unlike you, who, unable to bear your own grievances, shirks your responsibilities and finds ways to annoy your fellow mates. The renowned Ting Xiang was known for her sharp tongue, her words striking like firecrackers. And she showed no mercy in lifting the veil of modesty from Ting Mei's heart. Upon hearing her remarks, the maidservants in the courtyard began to murmur amongst themselves. With some stifling giggles, Ting Mei's face flushed crimson. After all, she was still a young maiden. And while she harbored thoughts of becoming a concubine to the heir of the whole residence, having such aspirations publicly articulated was an entirely different matter. Embarrassment, anger, and shame surged within her, prompting her to toss aside the melon seeds she had been holding and leap into a scuffle with Ting Xiang. The two of them clawed at each other's faces and tugged at each other's hair, creating a ruckus that echoed throughout the courtyard. The surrounding maidservants and matrons eagerly fanned the flames, relishing the spectacle. Amidst the commotion, the noise indeed drew the attention of an outsider. A lady clad in a lilac gauze dress and a silver white jacket, accompanied by a maidservant, who gracefully entered the scene. Chapter 17. Who wants to be the concubine of the Marquis? The woman clad in a powder pink dress and silver white jacket observed two maidservants engaged in a fierce altercation. Remaining silent as she gestured for her own maid to hush, her expression serene as she watched the commotion unfold. She engaged in conversation with the matron beside her, exclaiming, "Oh dear, what could be the reason for such a fierce fight between the two?" The maid attending her, sweating profusely, retorted, "Miss, how can you remain so composed? You seem to have picked up that old man's catchphrase." The matron to her left, her gaze fixed on the spectacle, responded without turning her head. "They are all vying to become the first maidservant of Miss Zui, hoping to enter the Marquis residence as concubines. It's a fierce competition, akin to a flock of crows squabbling, yet ultimately, it's all in vain. Is being the foremost maidservant of Miss Zui truly so desirable? The young ladies in the household also have their first maidservants, they can compete too." The woman continued. The maid on her right interjected, "Oh, what do you know? Our young masters in the general's household are capable of attaining the rank of a 4th or 5th grade general. Moreover, our master does not take many concubines. Enduring the harsh conditions of the Northwest. The heir apparent, however, will one day be the Duke of Shuangda, a first-rank imperial relative. To be his concubine would surely mean a future adorned in gold and silver." Upon hearing this, the maid glanced back in astonishment, realizing that the woman before her was none other than Feng Zui. At her exclamation, the surrounding maidservants and matrons turned in unison, and upon recognizing Feng Zui, they fell to their knees in fright, realizing they had been engrossed in the spectacle, unaware that the principal had arrived. Feng Zui and her maid, Hong Ying, were in deep slumber when the commotion began. However, as soon as the fight broke out, a young maid rushed to inform Hong Ying. Hong Ying, an exceptional head maid, adeptly managed her subordinates, both second-tier and junior maids, with great care. She was diligent yet not overburdened, regarding matters related to Feng Zui. She permitted the younger maids to awaken her at any moment, even in her sleep. The affection Hong Ying showed towards Feng Zui resembled that of a devoted sister. Her chamber was conveniently close to Feng Zui's main quarters, and upon being roused by the young maid, Feng Zui awoke as well. Upon learning of the situation, the pair made their way over, coincidentally witnessing the two maidservants in conflict. As Feng Zui beheld Ting Mei's face, her expression darkened. Though it was Lu Dajiao's instigation, the very person who had poisoned her in her previous life stood before her. Had she truly treated Ting Mei so poorly in her past life? Why did she harbor such malice, determined to bring about her demise? Clenching her fists tightly, her nails dug painfully into her palms. Observing this, Hong Ying quickly grasped her hand, noticing the red imprints forming, her heart aching for her. "Miss, do not be angered. They are not worth it." Indeed, they were not worth her ire. In her previous life, Ting Mei had seamlessly ascended to the position of first maidservant and followed to the Marquis residence, thus this altercation had never transpired. In this life, Feng Zui was already troubled, preoccupied with thoughts of how to keep her father and brother away from the battlefield, and had not anticipated Ting Mei's involvement, yet, unexpectedly, she had come crashing into her life. Hong Ying, visibly upset, exclaimed, "How dare they not kneel upon seeing the miss?" Upon hearing her stern voice, the two maidservants immediately ceased their actions and knelt down. At that moment, Ting Mei's face was marred, her hair disheveled, and the sleeves of her clothing torn. The result of their recent scuffle on the ground, leaving them both covered in dust and bits of grass, appearing utterly disheveled. The other maidservant who had engaged in the altercation with Ting Mei was not in a much better state. She had a round face and was glaring angrily at Ting Mei. Feng Zui, she observed them, her eyes curving into a delightful smile as she remarked, "You too. Who among you wishes to become the Lord's concubine?" Hong Ying nearly stumbled in disbelief, thinking to herself, "My lady, are you truly serious? What kind of talk is this? Moreover, I have no desire to become a concubine." Chapter 18. Born on the same day in the same month, which of you two wishes to serve as a concubine to the Marquis? The woman speaking before them possessed a radiant beauty, her arched brows and crescent-shaped eyes captivating, while her delicate lips parted lightly, resembling an ethereal being in the glaring sunlight. Though it was known that their young mistress was exquisite, it seemed she had grown even more enchanting, a thought shared among the maids and matrons in the courtyard. Through stray strands of hair, Ting Mei gazed dazedly at her mistress, who appeared to have blossomed in beauty yet again. Having lived in the general's residence since childhood, she was akin to the other household servants. However, there was one distinction: she shared the same birth date as the illustrious Zui. Both were born on the same day of the same month, yet fate had dealt them disparate cards. Zui was a cherished daughter of the general's household, while Ting Mei was a mere servant, lowly and unrefined. Truly, they were of the same lineage yet lived vastly different lives. Lowering her gaze, she observed her own battered nails and the grimy back of her hands, a wave of sorrow washing over her. Why must it be so? Though both were human, even sharing the same birth date, Zui enjoyed the privileges of a noble lineage, while Ting Mei remained a wretched servant. Zui could effortlessly ascend to become the legitimate wife of the heir to the Marquis of Scorned, while Ting Mei could only yearn for the unattainable position of a mere concubine. The chasm between their fates felt insurmountable. As Ting Mei lamented the cruel lottery of life, Zui had already departed with Hong Ying. Suddenly jolted by the tugging of two matrons, Ting Mei exclaimed, "What madness is this? What are you doing?" The two matrons regarded her as if she were a simpleton, each grasping one of her arms, saying, "You are the one who has lost your senses. The mistress intends to punish you." While Ting Mei was lost in thought, Zui had issued her orders for her involvement in a fight. Both Ting Mei and Ting Xi were to receive 10 lashes, and due to Ting Mei's deliberate negligence in troubling the young maid, an additional 5 lashes were added. She would then be sent to a country estate outside the city to toil in the fields. To be sent to a country estate, having just endured a painful beating. Ting Mei, upon hearing this dreadful news, fainted from anger. This distance only drew her further away from the hope of becoming a concubine of the Marquis. The sound of the lashes echoed repeatedly as Ting Mei lay on the bench, her fists clenched tightly. In her heart, she roared, "Zui, you wretched creature! I despise you. I shall surpass you, marry even better, and rise from this mire to ruin you completely." Lost in these thoughts, she succumbed to her pain and fainted. In that moment, within the confines of her chamber, Zui extended her fair hand, allowing Hong Ying to tenderly apply medicine to her palm. With a touch of concern, Hong Ying advised, "Do not let your temper flare over trivial matters, for it only harms your own health. Look here, you've drawn blood. Tell me, does it hurt?" "Yes." Zui replied obediently, "I will not allow it to happen again." The pain was indeed profound, a heartache stemming from her own compassion. She felt a twinge of regret for not having dealt more harshly with Ting Mei, believing that eliminating her would have severed the roots of the problem. Yet, at this moment, Ting Mei had committed no grave offense. She had not attempted to harm her. To punish her so severely would not only fail to garner public support, but it also weighed heavily on Zui's conscience. "Red Tassel," Feng Zui said thoughtfully, "send someone to keep an eye on Ting Mei from Swansea. If she shows any signs of instability, report to me immediately. Should she commit any grave errors, feel free to deal with her directly." After a brief pause, she added, "You have reliable individuals at Swansea, yes?" Red Tassel smiled and nodded, reassuring her, "Do not worry, my lady. What challenge could possibly thwart me? Your commands will be executed flawlessly." Although she was uncertain why the lady was so apprehensive about Ting Mei, she was convinced that there was something amiss with her. Feng Zui gazed at Red Tassel's smiling face, feeling a sense of comfort. In both this life and the past, she had relied heavily on Red Tassel. Yet, in her previous existence, this very dependence had led to Red Tassel's demise. In an attempt to eliminate her, the old matriarch of the Xian de Marquis had first disposed of the most loyal and capable Red Tassel. In this life, she resolved to grow stronger, becoming someone whom both Red Tassel and Honggu could rely upon. The days until her visit to her aunt's house in the capital were drawing near, and she knew she must take action. However, her father, accompanied by several brothers, had gone to inspect the border towns and would likely not return for another 10 days. She planned to wait for her father's return to discuss her past life and seek his assistance in dissolving her engagement with the Chien de Marquis. 2 days passed, and a servant from the outer courtyard delivered a letter, announcing that Wu Chunji's suitor had appeared and invited her for an outing in the countryside 3 days hence. Though the Yanlian Mountains marked the northern border, the spring scenery was indeed quite lovely. Red Tassel, Hongguo, prepare yourselves. In 3 days, we shall embark on a spring outing. Chapter 19. Reminiscing past Agnes' days turned into weeks, and soon after, her father returned, heralding the moment when Feng Zui would be escorted to the capital by her eldest brother. In but a year, she would wed Zhou Jingxi. Yet, in the following decade, what appeared to be a marriage steeped in affection would reveal itself as a facade of hypocrisy and coldness, culminating in her abandonment, maltreatment, and ultimately, her demise by poison. Tragically, those she cherished, her beloved family and protectors, would perish long before her. Why did her brothers fall valiantly on the battlefield? What led her once resilient mother to succumb to despair and take her own life? What circumstances cast Han Ying into the depths of the well? Why did he may betray her, administering poison to both herself and Hongguo? A sharp pain pierced through Feng Zui's mind. These queries, once unthinkable for her, now loomed large. In her past existence, she had no need to ponder these matters, for Han Ying would always devise solutions, and she never needed to strive to please anyone. Her parents and brothers serving as her unwavering support. After Feng Zui's marriage, the military accomplishments of the general's household were overshadowed by the tragic loss of her 3 brothers, who, despite reaching the age of marriage, had left no heirs behind. In this life, she vowed to alter this fate. With their efforts, her father transformed from an ordinary general into the Grand General of Anyuan, while her brothers ascended to the rank of Major General, each commanding their own troops. The northwestern borders, particularly the Yanlianshan region, became the stronghold of the Feng family's sons. Together, these father and sons commanded an army of 500,000 yet met with untimely demise on the front lines of the northwest. Indeed, they perished separately, each falling on their respective battlefields. A flicker of thought crossed Feng Zui's mind, yet in that moment, she could not grasp it. She retrieved a blank notebook, inscribing her questions and fragmented musings. Were the sacrifices of her brothers truly the result of war, or were there darker forces at play? Why had she, in her previous life, focused solely on Zhou Jingxi, neglecting the well-being of her own family? What had rendered her once strong mother so fragile? And who had surrounded her in her final days? In her ignorance, she had been engulfed by the grief of her brother's deaths, hastily penning a letter to her mother, urging her to come to the capital, promising to care for her. Yet, before her words could reach their destination, she received the devastating news of her mother's passing. The weight of regret bore down upon her. The trees long for tranquility, yet the winds persist, and children yearn to care for their parents, only to find them gone. In her former life, she had missed countless opportunities and lost far too much. She had prepared exquisite dishes for Zhou Jingxi, yet had scarcely cooked a single meal for her own mother. Fortunately, fate had granted her a second chance. This time, she would uncover the truths of her past life. This time, she would take up the ladle and serve her parents with love. Mother, now she could be by her side, showering her with affection and preparing delightful meals. With this thought, Feng Zui leapt to her feet, startling both Han Ying and Hongguo beside her, observing the 2 maids with expressions of astonishment. Feng Zui could not help but chuckle. She playfully pinched the chubby cheeks of Hongguo, and as she reached to do the same to Hong Ying, the latter deftly evaded her touch. With a resigned smile, Hong Ying remarked, "My lady, please do not be so mischievous." Meanwhile, Hongguo cradled her face in her hands, beaming with delight as she exclaimed, "The fairy maiden likes me. I am so happy." Feng Zui felt a wave of contentment wash over her and said, "Come, my dear ones, let us prepare some delicious treats." Chapter 20. Preparing a meal. When Feng Zui and her companions arrived at the grand kitchen, several kitchen maids were busy preparing the ingredients for lunch. Upon seeing Feng Zui, the maids displayed a hint of surprise, immediately standing to pay their respects. "Who is in charge of the kitchen?" Hongguo, mastering her courage, inquired, as she was currently in training to become a first-class maid. "I have met the young lady. I am Granny Huang, responsible for the kitchen as meals. There is also a head steward who is out procuring ingredients." A robust woman in her 40s approached, her long face adorned with a pair of somewhat sycophantic eyes. She wore relatively clean attire, a gilded hairpin nestled in her hair. "Granny Huang, I wish to prepare a dish for my mother. What are you planning to cook for lunch, and what ingredients do you have?" Feng Zui inquired amiably. aiming to win the hearts of her family while also being attentive to the household staff. Granny Huang appeared somewhat anxious as she replied. Today's lunch consists of steamed white buns, millet porridge, greens with salted meat, and pickles. Due to Feng Zhui's propensity for donating his wealth to disabled soldiers and their families, the finances of the general's household were quite strained, making it difficult for even a skillful cook to work without ingredients. The meal sounded rather unappetizing. Feng Zui, accustomed to the kitchen as offerings, found the taste to be merely average. Without uttering a word, she approached a few baskets of ingredients in the kitchen. A fresh fish caught her eye. Granny Huang, please have someone prepare this fish for me. You may continue with your lunch preparations. I only require a stove, she requested. Granny Huang, puzzled, thought that river fish was difficult to handle, often retaining a muddy taste, and she rarely cooked fish. Although the young lady had indeed studied culinary arts, it was merely a superficial understanding. What could she possibly create with fish? Dismissing the notion with a slight curl of her lip, she continued her tasks. After arriving in the capital, Feng Zui sought the guidance of esteemed chefs with her aunt's assistance to meticulously learn the art of cooking, particularly to serve her future in-laws and husband. Her first dish was fish soup, a nourishing delicacy suitable for the elderly, easy to digest and beneficial for the body. She had often prepared this dish for Zhou Jingxi's mother, who frequently praised her filial piety and virtuous nature, declaring that marrying Feng Zui was akin to welcoming a blessing into the Zhou family. In those days, she tirelessly concocted exquisite meals for the Zhou mother and son, while her father achieved numerous military victories along the borders. Zhou Jingxi, basking in the favor of the emperor due to his father-in-law and several uncles, was often rewarded by the emperor for his family's military achievements. The jewels and treasures bestowed upon her were immediately presented to Zhou's mother whenever she expressed admiration. Yet, it was this very mother-in-law who, upon the downfall of the Feng family, cruelly labeled Feng Zui as an ill omen, viciously casting her most cherished companion, Hong Yin, into the well, declaring her to be afflicted with an illness, and banishing her to a secluded courtyard. No more thoughts on this matter. The mere recollection caused her to struggle for breath, wishing she could deliver herself 2 resounding slaps. Just the thought of that mother and son, and of Lu Dezhou, suffocated her with hatred and resentment, leaving her heart aching, shattering, and burdened with a deep-seated loathing. This fish soup, crafted by her biological mother, the one who cherished her most, was never tasted in her previous life. The treasures of gold, silver, and precious stones had never graced the eyes of her parents or elder brother. Their families sacrificed their lives and fortunes for the sake of others, believing it would secure their daughter's happiness. Yet, in the end, the daughter was poisoned within the confines of a grand residence, deprived even of a coffin. Her remains hastily covered with a tattered mat. Feng Zui, stifling her tears, marinated the carefully prepared fish with scallions, ginger, salt, and yellow wine. She then took a radish, slicing it into fine shreds, and cut a bit of dried tangerine peel. Honggu volunteered to tend to the fire, the flames casting a warm glow on the faces of the three, enveloped in a comforting heat. Feng Zui deftly heated a small amount of oil in the pot, adding scallion whites and ginger to stir-fry, gently frying the marinated fish until fragrant. She then added an appropriate amount of water to cook the fish through, removing it once done. As the fish broth reached a boil, she added the fish, radish shreds, and tangerine peel, transforming it into a sumptuous soup. The aroma was delightful, and both Honggu and the young kitchen maids, along with the older matrons, were momentarily taken aback, most marveling at Feng Zui's culinary skills. However, in the eyes of Granny Huang, a flicker of an unnoticeable emotion passed, and she quickly concealed her expression, realizing it was amiss. Chapter 21. The luncheon of the Liang family at the Yanlian mountain border. In the residence of General Feng, Madame Liang resides in the main courtyard of the estate, known as the Sifu Hall. Born into a wealthy southern merchant family, Lian's maiden name was Xiong. She married Feng Zhui, who was then merely an ordinary lieutenant, and bore him 3 sons and a daughter. As her children grew, Feng Zhui ascended to the rank of general, leading her to accompany him to this desolate and frigid frontier of the northwest. At present, she is frail in stature and her health is not robust. Recently, her husband has taken their 3 sons to inspect the borders, leaving her alone with their youngest daughter, Feng Zui, in the general's mansion, far removed from the bustling Jiangnan and her family, leaving her spirit in solitude. Yet, next month, her daughter is to travel to the capital to be raised by her sister-in-law, Liang Yuxiu, in preparation for an impending marriage to the heir of the Marquis of Scorned. Zhou Jingxi. She longs for her daughter to spend more time with her, but Zuishi diligently practices needlework and culinary arts daily, preparing for her future marriage. Thus seldom visiting her mother. A fortnight ago, the daughter experienced a nightmare in the dead of night, after which she ceased her needlework and began frequently venturing outside the estate. Liang remains lonely, yearning to summon her daughter for companionship. Yet she contemplates that Zuishi has only a few days left at home. Perhaps it is best to allow her to pursue her passions. Consequently, she quietly takes it upon herself to craft embroidered shoes and various garments for her daughter, as her embroidery skills are commendable, a talent her daughter has inherited. Madam, lunch has been served, announced the ever-attentive nurse Cheng beside her. Oh, I have little appetite, Liang sighed, setting aside her needlework and rising to prepare for the meal. Madam, you have lost weight again. Do try to eat something, Nurse Cheng urged. Upon reaching the dining table, Liang beheld the familiar sight of steamed buns, salted meat, pickled vegetables, and thin porridge. With another sigh, she placed down her bamboo chopsticks and declared, I shall not eat. I truly have no appetite. Mother! A melodious voice rang out. Liang looked up and her face instantly brightened, softly replying, Zuishi, what brings you here? Her daughter, clad in a light blue RU skirt, stood at the doorway, beaming at her. Feng Zui, without the aid of a maid, carried a tray to the dining table and said, I prepared a dish and came to let mother taste it. Ah! My daughter is truly filial. Do allow me to sample it, Liang exclaimed with delight, knowing her daughter had been honing her culinary skills, although she had yet to taste them. Zuishi felt a pang of guilt. In her previous life, her culinary skills were rather mediocre, and she believed her dishes were unpalatable, never having had her family savor her cooking. In this life, she is determined to prepare delightful meals for her parents and brothers. Opening the food container on the tray, she revealed a lotus petal bowl. As she lifted the lid, the fragrant steam of the fish soup wafted forth, tantalizingly appetizing. Mother, please enjoy, Feng Zui smiled. How delightful! It must be delicious, Liang said as she took a spoonful and tasted it, finding the flavor rich and delectable, truly exquisite. In a short while, Liang had devoured a bowl of fish soup to the last drop. With a contented sigh, she remarked, Sisi, your culinary skills have truly flourished. This fish soup reminds me of the Westlake beef soup I savored in my childhood. Mother, if it pleases you, I shall prepare it for you every day. Feng Zui smiled. After a moment's hesitation, she continued, Mother, I have a request that I hope you will grant. Chapter 22. Reluctance to go to the capital. Mother, I have a request, and I hope you will grant it, Feng Zui said. Liang, looking at her daughter with affection, replied with a smile. What request could you possibly have? Speak freely. Whatever my child desires, I shall oblige. She had always been indulgent towards her daughter. Mother, I do not wish to go to the capital, nor do I want to marry the heir of the Scorned Marquis. I want to stay here with you, father, and my brothers. Feng Zui finally voiced her thoughts. In this lifetime, she was determined to avoid any connection with the Marquis' household. What? Liang was utterly taken aback by Feng Zui's declaration. She comforted her. Are you perhaps afraid of going to the capital alone? Fear not. I will have your elder brother accompany you and stay with you at your aunt's house for a while. Once you are familiar with him, you may return. We shall bring plenty of maize and gold and silver, allowing your brother to purchase some properties in the capital as your dowry, ensuring that those from the capital do not look down upon you. Upon hearing this, Feng Zui was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down her face. In her previous life, her parents had nearly exhausted their resources for her marriage. Her brothers had all remarked, a good man does not eat from a divided family. Our sister is but a young girl, let us secure her a solid foundation so that she may have some support in her marital home. As men, our honor, achievements, and futures are ours to earn. They had indeed achieved great things, yet they had also lost their lives. Her tears frightened Liang, who quickly sought to soothe her daughter. Feng Zui nestled in her mother's embrace, catching a faint scent of medicine emanating from her. After a while of weeping, Feng Zui felt somewhat better. Liang summoned someone to fetch water for her to wash her face. Once she was composed, Feng Zui dismissed everyone, leaving only herself and her mother. She resolved to share a portion of her past experiences with her mother, carefully selecting what to disclose to avoid alarming her gentle parent. Mother, do you recall the nightmare I spoke of a few days ago? Feng Zui inquired. It may not have been a mere nightmare. It felt as though I had truly experienced it. In that dream, I married the heir of the Scorned Marquis, Zhou Jinxi, who later inherited the title. He and his mother treated me poorly, continually taking concubines, and in the end, I succumbed to depression and illness. She refrained from mentioning the incident of the red tassel falling into the well or her own poisoning, only alluding to Zhou Jingxi's taking of concubines. In her previous life, despite her heart being torn asunder and tears streaming nightly, she had maintained a facade of virtue and grace. Sisi, have you encountered a ghost or rather, something malevolent? Liang was genuinely terrified. Her daughter's words bore an uncanny resemblance to reality, sending shivers down her spine. Seeing that she had indeed frightened her mother, Feng Zui felt a sense of helplessness. She wished to say more, but her mother grasped her hand tightly. Liang's lips trembled slightly as she said, Sisi, are you afraid of marrying Zhou Jingxi, which is why you had such a dream? Or could it be that your dream is a premonition of what is to come? The notion of dreaming of the future. That could indeed be a possibility. If she possessed such an ability, she could gradually inform her family of impending events. What you say seems plausible. Do you recall the new maid, Hongguo, who I brought back from outside? You must be wondering why I chose to bring her home. She briefly recounted her dream of a village with red fruit that would encounter bandits and be set ablaze. Then she added, I have also instructed third brother to keep watch over that village. If there are bandits, we will dispatch someone immediately to rescue the villagers and send word to me. Liang's fear had transformed into curiosity. Her eyes widened, and her mouth slightly agape. She exclaimed, Sisi, you are truly remarkable. My daughter is extraordinary. Could it be that I have given birth to a celestial being? Her mother seemed to swell with pride. Feng Zui could not help but rub her forehead, pondering how her mother could be so adorably naive. In her excitement, Liang suddenly coughed, her face reddening slightly, which seemed rather unusual. Mother, have you been feeling unwell lately? Are you taking any medication? Feng Zui inquired with concern. Liang waved her hand and replied with a smile, I am not on any medication, I merely cough occasionally. It's nothing to worry about, my child. Yet, if she was not taking any medication, what could explain the faint scent of medicine that lingered around her mother? Chapter 23. The mysterious ant. When did I just catch a whiff of medicinal fragrance on you? Feng Zui directly inquired, are you wearing a sachet? There was nothing amiss in speaking openly with her mother. Her intention was to eliminate any potential dangers surrounding her family. Noting her daughter's curiosity, Liang also took it seriously, sniffing at her own garments but failing to detect any trace of the scent. Suddenly, she remarked, I am wearing a sandalwood bracelet that Aunt Wan procured for me during her visit to the Bodhizen temple. This revelation led Feng Zui to recall that her father indeed had a concubine, known as Wan Xinyang. However, this concubine had long devoted herself to a life of vegetarianism and Buddhist practices, remaining blissfully detached from family affairs, almost like a specter within the household. She resided in a secluded corner, accompanied only by a maid, in an independent courtyard of the general's residence. Her memories from childhood were hazy. Yet she faintly recalled a time when she, along with Hong Ying and others, played hide-and-seek and chanced upon that small courtyard. The door had been ajar then. The recollection was blurred, but she vaguely remembered seeing large peonies in full bloom within the courtyard, shrouded in a delicate mist, and a woman standing amidst the floral splendor. The woman was adorned in resplendent golden-red attire, draped in flowing blue sleeves, her beauty striking and exquisite, crowned with a phoenix emblazoned headdress, turning to give her a captivating smile that was breathtaking. Suddenly, an overwhelming fragrance enveloped her, and then darkness consumed her consciousness. When she awoke, it was already evening, and she found herself in her own bedchamber. She recounted to her mother the vision of the elegantly attired woman in the courtyard, asking, was that Aunt Wan? How could she be so beautiful, even more splendid than you, mother? Her mother smiled gently. How could that be? Aunt Wan is devoted to Buddhism and usually dresses quite simply. Later, she even called for Aunt Wan to present herself before Feng Zui. The woman, whose beauty could only be described as graceful, wore a plain dark blue robe, a wooden hairpin nestled in her hair, and held a string of prayer beads. Her demeanor humble and reserved, resembling a nun. She was in no way as strikingly beautiful or alluring as the figure in Zui's dream. Everyone unanimously agreed that Feng Zui must have been dreaming of a flower fairy in an enchanting realm. The young Feng Zui also considered that perhaps she had misjudged. Yet every time she thought of Aunt Wan, the indelible image remained that of the enchanting woman amidst the flowers, and she could almost sense the lingering fragrance once more. Is this the scent Aunt Wan gifted? May I have a whiff? Feng Zui asked. Liang chuckled affectionately, removing the sandalwood bracelet and handing it to her daughter. Feng Zui examined it closely and brought it to her nose. It was merely a common sandalwood bead. fragrant but lacking the medicinal scent of her mother and certainly not reminiscent of the aroma from her dream. Returning the bracelet, Feng Zui felt a cloud of doubt envelop her, yet she could not grasp the crux of the matter. At this moment, Liang hesitated briefly and said, "Cici, although what you have mentioned is somewhat extraordinary, your mother will discuss it with your father. For now, there is no need for you to travel to the capital. Let us first ascertain the circumstances surrounding the Chien de Marquis and the heir before deciding whether to annul your engagement. This betrothal has been in place for many years and seems to have royal endorsement, so dissolving it is not a simple matter." The fact that her own marriage was somehow tied to the royal family was something Feng Zui could never have anticipated, and in her previous life, she had been entirely unaware of this connection. Upon returning to her chamber, she took out her notebook and recorded the medicinal scent associated with her mother, as well as the situation regarding concubine 1. Chapter 24. A spring outing at the Bodhi Zen courtyard. Later, Feng Zui ventured alone to that quaint courtyard, only to find the entrance firmly shut. She knocked gently on the door, yet no one came to answer, so she eventually gave up. The following day, Feng Zui prepared a delightful chicken soup with silken tofu and beef stir-fried with cucumbers, accompanied by a bowl of glutinous rice. Her mother savored the meal with great satisfaction, even consuming 2 small bowls of rice. She had silently resolved that as long as she remained at home, whenever time permitted, she would prepare meals for her mother, regardless of whether it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner. When her father and brothers returned, she would also let them taste her culinary skills. In this lifetime, she was determined to make amends for them. Feng Zui felt a growing discontent with the large kitchen. Her mother, being from the south, had a particular fondness for rice. However, the kitchen predominantly served flour-based dishes daily. How could her mother possibly have an appetite? Did no one in the kitchen consider the mistress's preferences? She planned to persuade that old woman, Huang, to make some adjustments in this regard. 3 days later, as the young servant had mentioned, Feng Zui intended to embark on a spring outing with Hong Ying and Hong Guo, primarily to chance upon Wu Chunji and her paramour. She wished to ascertain whether this gentleman was indeed Dong Wenyuan, the heartless scoundrel responsible for Wu Chunji's tragic fate. In early spring, the Yanlian Mountains were adorned with breathtaking scenery, teeming with life. Among the towering pines and firs, the lush greens intermingled, creating a vibrant tapestry of deep and light hues. The varied landscapes, with their undulating peaks, filled the heart with tranquility. Feng Zui, accompanied by her 2 maidservants, traveled by horse-drawn carriage to the Yunyun Pavilion at the foot of the Yanlian Mountains. From there, they meandered upwards, reaching the Bodhi Zen courtyard, renowned as the most illustrious temple in the vicinity, with a flourishing incense offering and delectable vegetarian dishes at reasonable prices. Feng Zui particularly relished a dish of chestnuts with greens, where the vegetables were sweet and savory, and the chestnuts were tender and fragrant. She planned to prepare this for her family on a future occasion. It seemed that today, Wu Chunji and her beloved had indeed come to the temple. Disembarking from the carriage, Feng Zui, Hong Ying, and Hong Guo ascended the steps, admiring the surrounding beauty while searching for the couple. Before long, they spotted Wu Chunji alongside a young man. Today, Wu Chunji wore a light touch of makeup, her hair styled in a simple cascading cloud bun, adorned with a plum blossom silver hairpin, and dangling jade earrings graced her ears. Her attire was modest yet elegant, consisting of a pale blue RU skirt paired with a sky blue jacket, exuding a refreshing grace. Standing beside her was none other than Zhang Wenyuan. Feng Zui recognized him at a glance. In her previous life, she had accompanied Zhou Jinxi and had encountered Zhang Wenyuan on several occasions. The rapport between Zhou Jinxi and Zhang Wenyuan appeared amicable. In her past life, Zhang Wenyuan had even visited Zhou Jinxi multiple times. At this moment, Zhang Wenyuan appeared somewhat younger, of average height, with a dignified demeanor, dressed in a warm gray scholar's robe, presenting the visage of a humble scholar. The two were engaged in cheerful conversation, and as they glanced up, Wu Chunji noticed Feng Zui and her companions not far away. A look of surprise crossed her face, and following her gaze, Zhang Wenyuan also caught sight of Feng Zui and her 2 attendants. Amidst the scattered peach blossoms, a maiden of exquisite beauty stood gracefully in a flowing gown of apricot yellow, resembling a celestial being. Zhang Wenyuan was instantly captivated by her beauty. Having witnessed such elegance, Feng Zui boldly approached Wu Chunji with her 2 handmaidens, performed a respectful bow, and addressed her, saying, "I pay my respects to my esteemed master." Chapter 25. Who went to the Zen temple? Wu Chunji smiled gently and remarked, "What a coincidence." She held a fondness for Feng Zui. who had only recently begun her dance training yet exhibited remarkable diligence, never complaining of pain or fatigue, regardless of how challenging the movements became. What was particularly commendable was that, despite being a lady of noble birth, she consistently treated her dancing instructor with the utmost respect, devoid of any disdain or disrespect. Zhang Wenyuan's eyes sparkled with surprise as he inquired, "Lady Wuchun, is this your disciple?" Wu Chunji glanced at him, nodded slightly, yet refrained from revealing Feng Zui Xi's true identity. Zhang Wenyuan, somewhat impolitely, scrutinized Feng Zui Xi, his gaze drawn to the jade hairpin and the golden ornaments adorning her, causing his eyes to flicker. When he attempted to look again, he found himself obstructed by a plump maid with a round face and raised eyebrows standing protectively in front of the young girl. Hong Guo glared at him, and Zhang Wenyuan, feeling quite embarrassed, averted his gaze, returning to his conversation with Wu Chunji, though it was evident that his mind was elsewhere. At that moment, a cacophony of voices erupted from the foot of the mountain as a group of soldiers clad in gleaming gold helmets and silver armor rushed forward, faintly echoing commands to retreat. The onlookers were urged to clear the path, forbidden from ascending the mountain any further. Meanwhile, the soldiers firmly guarded the flanks of the now vacant mountain road, as a cadre of commanding figures surrounded a tall, striking young man who made his way toward the Bodhi Zen temple. As they passed each other, the tall man seemed to sense something and glanced in Feng Zui Xi's direction, but all he glimpsed was a silhouette clad in apricot yellow. Why did it evoke a sense of familiarity? Surely it could not be her. She was not that youthful, while the girl in the apricot robe appeared to be merely in her teens. "My lord, this is the Bodhi Zen temple," announced General Wei Yuan, leading the young man into the temple. They were genuinely puzzled as to why such a prominent figure would journey all the way from the capital to this northwestern border, specifically requesting a visit to a place called the Bodhi Zen temple. Rumor had it that this influential man was notoriously domineering, his thoughts deep and inscrutable. Had he come to meddle in the military affairs of the Northwest, or did he harbor some other intent? Feng Zui Xi and her companions were left with no choice but to descend the mountain. As they walked, Hong Gu muttered, "What a pity we can't enjoy the vegetarian meal. I'm so hungry." Feng Zui Xi smiled and reached out to comfort her, but Hong Gu was slightly taller, prompting her to abandon the attempt. Wu Chunji, walking beside her, couldn't help but chuckle at the scene. "Shall I treat you to a vegetarian meal? I know of a delightful vegetarian restaurant, though I'm uncertain if it's convenient," she proposed, realizing that Zhang Wenyuan was still in their company, making her suggestion somewhat abrupt. Had it been Feng Zui Xi from her past life, she would have undoubtedly declined. However, she was no longer that person. Her previous adherence to strict propriety had only led to an unsatisfactory fate. "That sounds wonderful. How could I allow my master to bear the expense?" "Please, name the place, and let your disciple treat you," Feng Zui Xi replied with a smile. Wu Chunji waved her hand, saying, "I have already accepted your tuition. It is only fitting that I treat my student to a meal. This time, do heed my advice. Once you have mastered your skills, we shall not delay in hosting a banquet to express our gratitude to the teacher." Upon hearing her words, Feng Zui Xi no longer insisted. She was well aware that her dance instructor possessed considerable wealth, sufficient to support an entire household in comfort and even to nurture a court official. With this thought in mind, she could not help but cast a glance at Zhang Wenyuan, only to discover that he was gazing back at her as well. Chapter 26. The unusual steamed bun. Zhang Wenyuan could hardly have anticipated that Feng Zui Xi would suddenly turn to gaze at him, which took him by surprise. As Feng Zui Xi's mind raced, she offered a gentle and polite smile, nodding slightly before turning away. Zhang Wenyuan, unable to resist the charm of her smile, adjusted his attire, tidied his hair, and even lifted his chin slightly. Upon reaching the foot of the mountain, everyone boarded their respective carriages. As their encounter with Wu Chunji and her companions was serendipitous, Feng Zui Xi chose the oldest carriage from her household, deliberately removing the insignia of the general's residence. It appeared to be merely an ordinary street carriage for hire. Following closely behind that carriage, Hong Ying instructed the driver, and the two carriages proceeded into the city, one after the other. "I wonder what delightful dishes Master Wu will treat us to. It will be my first time dining out," exclaimed Hong Guo, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Is dining out the only way to enjoy oneself? Have you forgotten the delectable dishes the young lady has prepared for the madam these past few days?" Hong Ying replied with a smile. "I haven't been deprived, but it seems Sister Hong Ying has tea either, right? Hee. We are evenly matched." Hong Guo chuckled in return. Feng Zui Xi watched the two banter and couldn't help but smile herself. You both have a penchant for certain foods. Do share with me, and we can ponder together on how to prepare them. Hongguo responded, honestly, I would be content just to have steamed buns every day. I used to go to bed hungry. However, she then inquired, but young lady, why do the madam's steamed buns taste different from the ones we eat? Feng Zui laughed. What do you mean they taste different? They are all made in the big kitchen. How do you know the madam's buns are different unless you've tasted them? Hongguo, a bit bashful, touched her round face and replied, I've been afraid of hunger since childhood, and even in the residence. I always desire a full stomach to feel secure. I crave something to eat before sleeping to drift off to slumber. Hong Ying, slightly impatient, urged, don't stray off topic. Get to the point. Hongguo then continued, in the past few days, the young lady has prepared delightful dishes for the madam. Yet the big kitchen steamed buns went untouched by her. I've been asking the elder maids for 2 each day to eat before bed. And only then did I realize that the madam's buns are sweeter. Sweeter. Feng Zui silently noted this revelation. Suddenly, she leaned closer to Hongguo, closed her eyes, and inhaled deeply, grabbing Hongguo's hand and pressing it against her nose for a thorough sniff, even daring to lightly lick Hongguo's cheek. Oh dear, young lady. This is quite embarrassing. Hongguo, usually so bold, found herself blushing. Yet, Feng Zui's expression remained stern. She spoke not a word, but a chill coursed through her. There was an exceedingly faint scent of medicine emanating from Hongguo, one that would have gone unnoticed had she not closed her eyes and concentrated. This scent was identical to that of her mother. Someone was administering medicine to her mother, or perhaps, poisoning her. If this poison was concealed within the buns meant for her mother, could it possibly relate to her mother's demise in her previous life? How could it be that so soon, someone wished to harm their family? Such malice was truly detestable, and the perpetrators deserved nothing less than condemnation. Feng Zui tightly clenched her fist, her gaze piercingly fierce, her teeth chattering audibly. She was acutely aware that her expression must be terrifying, that she might frighten her 2 devoted maids, and that such a display of emotion was unbecoming. She knew, she was fully aware. Yet, the profound and intense hatred stemming from her past life rendered her utterly uncontrollable. The jade pendant adorning her neck emitted a faint violet glow, concealed from the eyes of Hongguo and Hong Ying by the collar of her garment. Miss, please do not behave this way, try to relax a little, urged Hong Ying, swiftly grasping Feng Zui's left hand, prying open her fingers, only to discover the tender palm stained with blood. Simultaneously, Hongguo hurriedly followed suit, peeling back the fingers of Feng Zui's right hand, tenderly blowing on the bloodied palm and exclaiming, What on earth has happened to you, miss? Hong Ying quickly gestured for silence, and Hongguo promptly subdued her voice. Chapter 27. Marquis Hong Ying tightly embraced Feng Zui, gently patting her back with her right hand, tears streaming down her cheeks in heartfelt sympathy. She softly murmured, Do not fear, my lady, do not be angry, do not cry. The wicked ones shall retreat. In a moment of confusion, Feng Zui softly uttered, Wandering souls, where do you linger? Strange phantoms, graveyards and forests. Today, I beseech the mountain deity and the 5 generals of the rose, the local land gods, and the kitchen deities. Seeking and searching, I shall uncover the true soul. Retract the possession, restore my spirit. Reopen the chaos, and soothe my heart. Hongguo held one of Feng Zui's hands, gazing at the 2 with a somewhat dazed expression. After a brief respite, Feng Zui regained her composure. Hong Ying offered her a handkerchief to clean her face, and the trio refrained from mentioning the recent events. Before long, the carriage came to a halt, and the driver called out, Sister Hong Ying, the carriage ahead has stopped, it seems we have arrived. The 3 disembarked, looking up to see a modest yet clean and elegant little restaurant named Marquis. Beneath the plaque hung a couplet, Does one dwell in emptiness? Emptiness is but dust. Feng Zui chuckled, judging by this couplet, the proprietor must be an extraordinary person. Over there, Wu Chunji and Zhang Wenyuan also alighted from the carriage, and the group entered the establishment together. As soon as Wu Chunji stepped inside, a cheerful young attendant approached with a broad smile, saying, Spring lady has arrived, please come inside. His familiarity was evident, and his lively tone was quite endearing. Wu Chunji responded with a smile, Obey, I am hosting a few friends today. Where is our young master? I have not seen him. The young attendant, named Obey, glanced at the group accompanying Wu Chunji, finally resting his gaze on Zhang Wenyuan. After a brief pause, he replied, Our young master has gone out to discuss business. Recently, guests have complained about the pastries and remarked on the limited variety of vegetarian dishes, as well as the absence of medicinal cuisine. The young master is quite anxious and has gone to various pastry shops in search of delicious treats. Spring lady, you shall surely enjoy a bountiful selection when he returns. Wu Chunji nodded slightly, and the group made their way to a private room called Chenxing, where they settled in. It was evident that Wu Chunji was a regular patron. As soon as she sat down, she instructed all Lu, 1 portion each of dual-colored lotus slices, meritorious vegetarian goose, compassionate vegetarian fish, and cold mixed tofu. She also asked Obey for recommendations to present to the others. Zhang Wenyuan chose a dish of vegetarian golden bell meat and a honey-glazed baked gluten, chuckling. I suspect the 2 ladies will find this sweet dish to their liking. He then cast a seemingly casual glance at Feng Zui. However, Feng Zui did not meet his gaze and instead turned to Obey, saying, I would like a vegetarian crab meat dish and a black fungus, tofu, and golden needle mushroom soup. Obey appeared somewhat troubled, responding, Esteemed lady, we do not have those 2 dishes here. Feng Zui, having momentarily lost her focus, unintentionally ordered 2 vegetarian dishes she commonly enjoyed in the capital. Oh, do you not serve these 2 dishes? She inquired. Then I shall select something else. May I ask? Miss, where have you had these 2 dishes before? A strange voice echoed at the door, prompting everyone to look up and behold a slightly plump young man. Despite his portly figure, the youth possessed handsome features, adorned in a garment of purple satin, unmistakably the attire of a wealthy gentleman. Yet, this affluent scion cradled a large bundle in his arms. Obey turned to see him and exclaimed joyfully, Dongjia, you have returned. Afterward, he cast a provocative glance at Zhang Wenyuan. Wenyuan, you arrived just in time. I have purchased a plethora of pastries, shortly. I shall need everyone to assist me in tasting them to discern which establishment offers the finest. That is the one from which I shall procure. The master and servant shared a similar disposition, and Dongjia, like Obey, was forthright in speech. Feng Zui observed him thoughtfully, recalling that in a past life, this individual, the proprietor of a restaurant, had met his demise even earlier than Wu Chun's. On the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, a restaurant owner was retrieved from the river. That very day marked the commencement of Feng Zui's journey to the capital. She remembered pushing open the window of her carriage, only to behold this man. His face a ghastly shade of grey. He lay by the river bank, his eyes wide open, brimming with unfulfilled desires. Their gazes intersected, sending a shiver down her spine. The 8th day of the 12th month was fast approaching. Could she, as she had with Hongguo, rescue Dongjia once more? Chapter 28, Becoming Feng Dongjia. Unbeknownst to Feng Zui, while she was savoring vegetarian dishes with the dying figures of Wu Chunji and Dongjia at Marquis' high, an army had arrived at the foot of Yanlianshan in the border town. Dongjia, whose full name was Hisanan, came from a prosperous family and had a penchant for vegetarian cuisine, which led him to open this establishment, Marquis' high. Hisanan unpacked his bundle, displaying various delicacies for the others to choose from. He then solicited Feng Zui's insight on the flavors of 2 vegetarian crab dishes. Observing his earnestness, Feng Zui replied, I am indeed familiar with the preparation of these dishes. If you wish, I can share the methods with you. Hisanan was overjoyed but added, recipes are often closely guarded secrets. If you are willing to share, I cannot accept it without recompense. I can offer silver in exchange. Feng Zui was about to decline when Wu Chunji playfully interjected, Disciple, do acquiesce to him. Sanan is truly passionate about the culinary arts. Remarkably, he lacks the mercantile stench of greed, possessing instead a heart of innocence. With that, she cast a glance of deep admiration at Dongjia. Dongjia returned the smile and remarked, finding a confidant is rare. Fortunately, Sister Chang understands me. As the 2 exchanged affectionate glances, Feng Zui found herself perplexed. Was Wu Chunji's beloved Zhang Wenyuan or this Hisanan? She couldn't help but glance at Zhang Wenyuan, whose expression remained unchanged. Yet his gaze toward Hisanan bore a hint of severity before it quickly tempered. Dongjia invited Feng Zui to a private chamber, where she wrote several vegetarian recipes for him, inspired by the delectable dishes she had enjoyed in the capital and during royal banquets. Feng Zui delighted in cooking and possessed a natural talent, often successfully recreating dishes she had tasted, sometimes even improving upon them. Lotus flower silver snow rice, auspicious vegetarian fish balls, creamy tofu marvelous. Dongjia praised as he viewed the names and methods Feng Zui had penned. Suddenly, he proposed, would you consider joining as a partner? You would focus on developing the menu, and I would grant you a 30% share of the profits. Feng Zui was somewhat speechless, thinking, good sir, let us first ensure you survive until the 8th day of the 12th month and enjoy your lab kanji. Speaking of kanji, she added. I have a recipe for laba 8 treasure glutinous rice porridge that can be introduced on that day. Eager to hear about this 8 treasure porridge. What is it? Please, do tell. He Dongjia urged. The two exchanged recipes and discussed culinary philosophies, discovering a delightful rapport. He Dongjia, a man of passion, felt a strong urge to propose a brother-sister bond with Feng Zui. She sensed that he was a sincere, kind-hearted individual who shared her love for food. Could such a person truly meet a tragic end? Despite Hisanen's persistent entreaties, Feng Zui ultimately signed the contract, securing a 30% stake in Marquis. Congratulations, Feng Dongjia. Hisanen beamed. Congratulations to you as well, He Dongjia. Feng Zui replied with a smile. The interactions between individuals are truly enigmatic. Some may share long periods together yet still find it difficult to open their hearts, while others become confidants upon first meeting. Feng Zui suddenly inquired, He Dongjia. What is your relationship with my master, the witch lady? Hisanen, caught off guard, felt a flush of crimson color grace his chubby face. He candidly replied. We were once very good confidants, but my feelings for her have grown increasingly. You are infatuated with the witch master? Feng Zui queried. Oh dear. You are quite the bold and straightforward young lady. Hisanen exclaimed, feeling both embarrassed and a touch melancholic. However, Chang Yang does not reciprocate my feelings. And today she has brought along that young Master Zhang. Alas! Since you harbor feelings for her, you should confess your affection without delay, Feng Zui advised. Simultaneously pondering that otherwise, you may never have another opportunity in this lifetime. Chapter 29. An unwelcome visitor. I sincerely advise you to take a look at Zhang Wenyuan. He has set his sights on Wenyang. You should seize the opportunity to confess your feelings to her, or else, if she ends up with Zhang Wenyuan, it will be too late. Hisanen nodded thoughtfully and replied, Thank you, Miss Feng, for your reminder. I will consider it. Noticing his earnest demeanor, Feng Zui continued, Mister. Do you have any enemies? Those who might harbor intentions to harm you? Hisanen's round face momentarily froze as he pondered the question. After a considerable pause, he replied with skepticism, In business, one inevitably encounters rivals, but surely it does not extend to wanting to kill me, does it? Do you know something, Miss Feng? Feng Zui twirled her beautiful eyes and, with her delicate fingers, pretended to calculate in the air. I possess a modicum of knowledge in fortune-telling. I observe that your forehead appears dark. There may be a calamity around the time of the Laba festival. Business people often harbor a belief in the principles of feng shui and destiny, and Hisanen immediately found himself convinced. In a state of anxiety, he implored Feng Zui. What must I do to avert this disaster? Feng Zui replied, As my understanding is limited, the specifics are for you to navigate. Exercise caution when entering and exiting. Bring along a few trusted attendants, and strive to avoid solitary encounters with strangers or enemies. Hisanen nodded vigorously, Understood, I shall heed your advice. Thank you, miss. He handed the completed contract to Feng Zui, who urged him again to confess to Wu Changzi as soon as possible. Just then, a servant arrived to summon Hisanen for an inventory of the delivered ingredients. Feng Zui thought to herself, I can assist you two only to this extent. As Hisanen departed, Feng Zui prepared to leave with the contract in hand, mindful of the secret recipes involved. Hong Ying and Hong Guo did not accompany her. Upon opening the door to the elegant chamber, she was startled to find Zhang Wenyuan standing at the threshold, glaring at her menacingly. Feng Zui, wishing to ignore him and exit, found her path obstructed as Zhang Wenyuan reached out a hand to block her way. Fixating on her exquisite countenance, he spat. You shameless wretch, how dare you incite other men to confess to Wenyang? Truly, you are devoid of any sense of decency. You are the one who lacks shame. Do not think I am oblivious to your intentions. You covet my master Wu's wealth. Recalling the tragic fate that befell Wu Changzi in her past life due to his malice, Feng Zui retorted with indignation. Like a cat whose tail has been stepped on. Zhang Wenyuan became enraged. He forcefully shoved Feng Zui into the chamber, sneering, Since you have allowed others to intrude upon my domain, you shall compensate me with yourself. His strength was formidable, and Feng Zui quickly realized that this seemingly destitute scholar possessed martial skills, albeit rudimentary. Whatever happened to the delicate, bookish persona? Help me, Hong Ying. The meager skills Feng Zui had recently practiced were insufficient against him. As she was about to call for her companions, Zhang Wenyuan seized her throat with a powerful grip, nearly rendering her breathless. Apprentices of Wu Changzi are no better than the courtesans of the brothel, he uttered with disdain. Your attire suggests you are even more alluring than Wu Changzi. Why not surrender to me alongside your master? She had long concealed her true identity. Also known as Master Wu Chunji, leading Zhang Wenyuan to mistakenly believe she was merely a songstress and dancer. Feng Zui felt as though she could no longer breathe. Summoning all her strength, she lifted her right leg and struck at Zhang Wenyuan's vital points. His face turned a sudden shade of purple, but he stifled a cry, loosening his grip on her. Seizing the opportunity, Feng Zui swung her right elbow, landing a blow to his face. Zhang Wenyuan was knocked to the ground. Dazed and utterly unprepared for an attack from this seemingly delicate woman, she brushed off her hands with a huff, relishing the fact that he was the first adversary she had bested. At that moment, applause echoed from the beams above. Well done. The young lady possesses a remarkable talent for martial arts. The voice was clear and melodious, imbued with a subtle magnetism. Feng Zui looked up to see a young man perched on the beams. He was, without a doubt, the most strikingly handsome figure she had ever encountered in both her past and present lives. Approximately 18 or 19 years of age, his skin was exceptionally fair and smooth, and his slightly curled long hair cascaded like black satin over his shoulders. This young man was extraordinarily handsome. With sword-like brows and starry eyes that twinkled like the night sky, his nose was chiseled and straight, while his lips curved into a captivating smile that could enchant anyone. What is the matter? Are you frightened? He asked, leaping down from the beams and effortlessly kicking Zhang Wenyuan, who had just begun to rise, back into unconsciousness. He waved a hand in front of Feng Zui, flashing a brilliant smile that revealed a set of pearly white teeth, radiant as the sun. Thank you, young sir. For your rescue, Feng Zui replied, adjusting her attire and adopting a feeble demeanor. Tears welled up in her eyes as she gently grasped the young man's garment. Had it not been for your chivalrous intervention, I would have fallen victim to this scoundrel. Oh dear, what are you doing? You were the one who knocked him out. Well, not entirely. It was I who kicked him into unconsciousness. The young man attempted to pry her hand from his clothing, but discovered that despite her delicate appearance, she possessed considerable strength, her grip unyielding. Meanwhile, her sobs grew louder, and the commotion outside intensified. Suddenly, the door burst open with a forceful shove. Miss, what has happened? It was the voice of Hong Ying. Feng Zui, her face streaked with tears, clung tightly to the young man's attire. Her back was to the door as she buried her head in his chest, her shoulders trembling as if she had been gravely startled. Zhang Wenyuan, that scoundrel, attempted to take advantage of me. Thankfully, this noble sir saved me, rendering him unconscious. I am so frightened. The young man leaned closer, whispering in her ear with a hint of playful sarcasm. I must say, my lady, you possess quite the talent for theatrics. You have captivated me. Feng Zui's tear-filled eyes sparkled with a smile concealed by her sleeve. Thank you. The young man, having surrendered to the moment, raised his hands in mock innocence, declaring, I assure you, I have done nothing. Is that you, Sister Zui? A familiar voice resonated behind her. This voice was so well-known, so gentle, yet so detestable, leaving an indelible mark upon her heart. Upon hearing it, Feng Zui's ears buzzed, as if engulfed in a deafening roar. She released the young man's collar and turned to face the doorway. There, she beheld the anxious expressions of Hong Ying and Hong Guo, the troubled faces of Wu Chunji and his Nan, and her husband from a past life, now her fiancé. Zhou Jingxi. Chapter 30. All converged. She gazed at him in disbelief. Was this truly Zhou Jingxi? Indeed, everything had changed. The heir of the Xian de Marquis, Zhou Jingxi, her husband from a past life, had never set foot in the border town before. As she stared at Zhou Jingxi before her, Feng Zui found it nearly impossible to comprehend had her rebirth altered everything around her. A cacophony echoed in her ears, her mind a blank slate, rendering her unable to think. It was Hong Ying who first rushed over, producing a handkerchief to wipe Feng Zui's tears and inquiring, Miss, what has transpired? Who is this Zhang Wenyuan? And from whence did this young gentleman emerge? She gestured toward Zhang Wenyuan, lying unconscious on the ground like a lifeless dog, and then pointed at the strikingly handsome man behind Feng Zui, clad in white, his chest marred by the remnants of her tears and snot. A sight too pitiful to behold. Feng Zui's mind raced, and she turned to the youthful and handsome man, asking, Might I inquire your esteemed name, benefactor? Yu Xiao. The man replied, brushing his hair aside with a gentle smile, his pink lips curving with a charming and mischievous allure. Instantly captivated, Feng Zui gazed at him dreamily, exclaiming, I am at a loss for how to repay the life-saving grace of young Master Yu. I can only offer my The last two words remained unspoken as Yu Xiao swiftly covered her mouth with his hand. Please, do not. I fear that fellow over there may slay me, he said, nodding toward Zhou Jingxi, who possessed a rather handsome jawline. Of course, Feng Zui was not blinded by infatuation. She merely sought to leverage Yu Xiao to extricate herself from Zhou Jingxi. She intended to call off the engagement. Miss, that is your future fiancé. You have met him in your childhood, Hong Ying whispered, grasping Feng Zui's hand. So he was the betrothed. Yu Xiao suddenly leapt to the window, stating, I shall not meddle in this murky affair any longer. Perhaps fate will allow us to meet again. With that, he vaulted out the window, vanishing from sight. Young Master Yu. Feng Zui dashed to the window, sorrowfully waving a silk handkerchief into the void, lamenting, I shall await your return. Turning back, she paid no heed to the astonished expressions of those around her and decisively placed her foot upon the face of the just revived Dong Wenyuan, prompting a pained yelp from him. Approaching the door, she glanced not at Zhou Jingxi but earnestly addressed Wu Chunzhai, saying, A master ought to respect gentlemen and distance themselves from scoundrels, especially from those who are nothing but lecherous beasts. Zhang Wenyuan's intentions are solely to exploit my master as wealth. Such a vile visage is unworthy of further attention. With that, the facade that Zhang Wenyuan had cloaked himself in was stripped away. Should he persist in his delusions, she would be powerless to assist him. Just as she was about to exit, her arm was seized by Zhou Jingxi. He regarded Feng Zui with a look of profound sorrow and remarked, Sister Zui, do you not think you owe me an explanation? Feng Zui yanked her arm free, her expression devoid of emotion as she replied, Do not pull at me. I have nothing to explain. With that, she led Hong Ying out of Marquis' high and into the carriage. The journey was silent. Hong Ying hesitated several times to speak. But upon seeing Feng Zui's demeanor, she refrained. Hong Guo offered a osmanthus cake to Feng Zui and a jujube cake to Hong Ying, stating, Ladies, please enjoy these snacks. They are from Master He, and oh, there is also this. She retrieved the deed from beneath the snack box resting on her knees. Recalling what He Dongjie had advised, do not lose it. Feng Zui glanced at the shared deed, realizing that she was now considered the proprietor of Marquis' high. She said, Hong Ying, please help me put this away. In an instant, Hong Ying forgot her worries and exclaimed, Miss, you are truly remarkable. Just stepping out for a meal has turned the restaurant into your own. Upon hearing this, Hong Guo, though unaware of the deed's significance, clapped her hands in delight, saying, Miss is a fairy, of course she is extraordinary. Feng Zui was overwhelmed with joy, thinking to herself that if she were an emperor, she would undoubtedly be a foolish one, reveling in flattery and basking in the praise of others. After a bout of laughter among the three, Feng Zui said, Hong Ying, could you inquire about why the heir of the Scorned Marquis, Zhou Jingxi, has suddenly come to visit us? Also, discreetly investigate if anyone in the grand kitchen is up to any mischief. Hong Ying's demeanor shifted to one of seriousness as she nodded in agreement. Suddenly, Hong Guo interjected, Miss, just now a guard left by the third young master came to report that our village has been attacked by mountain bandits, and they even set a fire. Chapter 31. To save oneself or to save others, did bandits truly invade the village of Honggu and set it ablaze? Feng Zui stood up abruptly, her head colliding with the roof of the carriage, eliciting a pained exclamation as she sat back down. Her parents, brothers, Hong Guo, Hong Ying, Wu Chunzhi, and Zhang Wenyuan were all traversing their original life paths, yet her presence and intervention had inevitably caused deviations, to varying extents. What? The tragic events of banditry and arson had indeed transpired. This lifetime was certainly not a mere nightmare. It had occurred in all its stark reality. Feng Zui glanced at the unharmed Hong Ying beside her and gently touched the smooth, full forehead of Hong Guo, offering a heartfelt smile. Fortunately, it was not too late. Everything could still be salvaged. What about the village? Were there any casualties? She inquired softly. Hong Guo replied with calm composure, thanks to the guards, the casualties were minimal. However, my former young husband, Dashi, has passed away. Hong Guo had originally been a child bride to Dashi, but his family treated her poorly. Thus, his death did not bring her sorrow, nor did she revel in misfortune, she merely felt a tinge of melancholy. Then, his parents are unharmed. Feng Zui recalled Dashi's peculiar parents and pressed further. No, they are missing. The guards could not locate them. Only Dashi's body was found amid the ruins. Hong Guo shook her head. They were often away from home, and I usually stayed with Dashi. Feng Zui had always harbored a strange sense regarding Dashi's parents, and their disappearance only heightened her suspicions. Mr. Kong Kong is injured, His arm was cut by the bandits, and he suffered a stab wound to the back. Fortunately, the guards rescued him and took him to the city's clinic last night. Miss, I wish to take a day off tomorrow to visit him. He was the only one in the village who witnessed my suffering and often secretly provided me with food. Without him, I would have starved long ago. Of course, I will accompany you along with Hong Ying, Feng Zui replied. Suddenly, she vaguely recalled hearing in her previous life that an elderly man and his donkey in this village had been reduced to ashes. Was that Mr. Kong Kong? How wonderful that he was still alive in this life. This village seemed perpetually besieged by calamity, as if it were fated to target someone. Regrettably, she had left for the capital not long after in her previous life, unaware of what transpired thereafter. In a temple in the capital, Feng Zui had once encountered an old monk who gazed at her intently for a long while before uttering a single sentence. Your fate is extraordinary, young lady. I advise you not to interfere in the karma of others, nor to disrupt their destinies. To forcibly save others is to deplete your own fate. There are too many who encounter misfortune, yet you cannot save them all. In her previous life, she had only drained her own essence. Yet in this life, she was determined to alter the fates of many, regarding her own depletion with indifference. She simply wished for the survival of those she cared for. She would save those she desired to save. As for those who had wronged her, a glint of sternness flickered in her eyes. She has never been one to repay kindness with malice. If one were to repay kindness, how could they repay grievances? Upon returning to the general's residence, she changed into her casual attire and began preparing dinner. After a day of running about, she intended to create nourishing and delectable dishes for her mother. Using glutinous rice, shiitake mushrooms, winter bamboo shoots, ham, and minced meat as fillings, her fingers danced skillfully as she crafted numerous paper-wrapped dumplings, placing them into the steamer. Hongguo immediately started the fire, taking on the role of the fire attendant with enthusiasm. Soon, the aroma of the dumplings wafted through the air. And Feng Zui offered one to Hongguo with a smile, saying, Taste how your young lady's culinary skills fare. With delight, Hongguo accepted the dumpling, marveling at its thin, translucent skin, revealing the enticing filling within, making her appetite surge. As she took a bite, an explosion of flavors filled her mouth, rich and delicious. Overcome with emotion, she embraced Feng Zui tightly, tears streaming down her face. Oh, my lady, how could I, Hongguo, be so fortunate to meet you? To sleep on a soft, fragrant bed, to wear beautiful dresses, and to savor such delicious food. Truly, I am immensely blessed. Feng Zui pinched her increasingly plump cheeks and replied. It is I who am fortunate to encounter both you and Hong Ying. To toil for oneself, to remain steadfast and unwavering, to sacrifice everything. She recalled the moment when Hong Ying was cast into the well, crying out, My lady, what shall you do without me? You must take care of yourself. Even in her final moments, Hong Ying had been concerned for her. Tears welled up uncontrollably in her eyes. She resolved not to dwell in memories but to look forward. Subsequently, Feng Zui prepared a porridge with red rice, red dates, goji berries, red beans, and peanuts, adding a handful of raisins just as it began to boil. She ladled a small bowl and presented it to Hong Ying. Upon tasting it with a spoon, Hong Ying exclaimed, This porridge is wonderfully sweet, fragrant, and sticky, truly delightful. I will take a jar of porridge and a steamer of dumplings to mother. The remainder will serve as our dinner. Feng Zui smiled. The maids and servants in the courtyard were overjoyed and quickly expressed their gratitude. The culinary skills of their young lady rivaled those of external chefs, especially with these homely dishes. Although the ingredients were the same, her cooking was extraordinarily delicious. Arriving at her mother's courtyard, Feng Zui heard a man's voice and inquired of the maid outside who was speaking with her mother. I recall that father and my brothers will not return for several days. The maid replied with a smile. It is the future son-in-law, the heir of the Scorned mansion. He has come to handle matters here and specially visited to pay his respects, bringing many gifts from the capital. He is currently conversing with Madam. What? Shou Jinxi has come to our home. Chapter 32. Do they wish to refuse marriage? As Feng Zui was preparing to depart, she noticed the cotton door curtain embroidered with auspicious symbols at her mother's entrance parting. Her mother's dory maid, Chong Moma, emerged with a slight smile. Respectfully bowing to her. Miss, the lady requests your presence inside. With that, Feng Zui stepped into the room. Inside, her mother, Lady Liang, was entertaining Shou Jinxi from the Xian de Marquis with tea. Shou Jinxi was dressed in a dark blue brocade long gown today, adorned with a golden crown upon his head. His countenance resembled jade, and his clear, bright eyes exuded a demeanor of grace and propriety, embodying the ideal image cherished by the elder generation. Upon seeing the curtain part, Feng Zui entered, holding a food box, and performed a perfunctory bow before placing the box on the table and standing behind Lady Liang. Zhou Jingxi appeared somewhat distracted. He had not anticipated that his fiancée, the little girl who once wept so easily, had transformed into such a stunning young lady. Clad in a simple orchid-colored satin dress, her long, glossy black hair was casually styled in a cloud bun, with 2 braids cascading down either side. Though merely 16, her fair complexion was strikingly beautiful, particularly her bright, expressive eyes that sparkled with vitality. At that moment, Feng Zui did not gaze at Zhou Jingxi, instead lowering her eyes, presenting a demeanor of refined tranquility before her mother, entirely unlike her earlier wild antics at Marquis' high. However, Zhou Jingxi understood that, from the very beginning, she had remained quite indifferent towards him. Zhou Jingxi was unfazed by her coldness. With a knowing smile, he addressed Lady Liang. I have come at the Emperor's behest to escort provisions and, at my parents' request, to accompany my fiancée, Miss Zui, to her aunt's home in the capital. Did he truly not mind the matters concerning Yu Xiuyou? Feng Zui kept her head bowed, a hint of derision gracing her lips. Those who endure what others cannot endure inevitably seek greater gains, reflecting on her family's past. She felt as if she had donned the wedding dress for his success. Lady Liang smiled graciously. We appreciate the young lord's kind intentions. However, since you two are not yet wed, it would not be appropriate for you to escort her. We will have Zui's elder brother accompany her to the capital instead. Zhou Jingxi sensed Lady Liang's distance, his expression stiffening slightly, yet he maintained his smile. It seems I have overstepped. After all, Miss Zui is my fiancée thus. Next month, I shall escort her alongside her elder brother. Lady Liang raised her hand, saying, Young lord, please enjoy your tea. This matter requires further discussion with the general. You need not concern yourself with Miss Zui. The smile on Zhou Jingxi's face faded entirely as he cast a lingering gaze at Feng Zui. At that moment, she happened to look up, and he felt as though he had gazed into a dark abyss, where unspeakable emotions resided: hatred, resentment, yet devoid of affection. Then I shall take my leave. Zhou Jingxi stood up, preparing to exit. Wait, Lady Liang spoke softly. Zhou Jingxi turned back to regard the mother and daughter pair. Liang graciously expressed, I am grateful for the gifts bestowed upon me by the young master, and I extend my gratitude to the Marquis and his wife as well. In a few days, I shall send some local specialties from the northwest to the inn where the young master is staying as a token of my appreciation. Very well. I shall take my leave now. With that, Zhou Jingxi departed without a backward glance. Upon exiting the general's residence, his loyal cavalry approached, leading his steed. He mounted the horse, and a shadow of gloom crossed his eyes. Observing Feng Zui and her daughter, it seemed they were contemplating a withdrawal from their engagement. A cold chuckle escaped the lips of the young man. Zhou Jingxi believed that he could attain whatever he desired, especially when it concerned a delicate young lady. Accompanied by over 20 companions, the young master of the Scorned market, Zhou Jingxi, galloped away in a cloud of dust. Meanwhile, from the second floor of a residence opposite the general's estate, a man clad in white gazed after the departing Zhou Jingxi, sighing. That young girl seems to have encountered unfitting company. Why should that concern you? Perhaps you should focus on how to manage your father instead. Running about carelessly every day may lead him to break your legs. A delicate voice retorted. Chapter 33. The unfettered Yu Xiuyou. The man clad in white possessed an extraordinary countenance, his figure tall and graceful. He was none other than Yu Xiuyou from the Miuxiang line. Upon hearing the words, he did not turn around but rested his chin on his hand, gazing at the general's residence, and remarked, I harbor no fondness for the capital. In fact, I loathe everything about it. His tone was heavy. I detest that place and abhor its people. You know this, as does the old man. Since you both understand, why must you insist that I return? The one addressed as Hong Yang was a young man adorned in crimson attire, his complexion pale and possessing a somewhat effeminate beauty. His face dusted with fragrant powder, emanating a delightful aroma. His brows were elegantly painted with indigo, and his lips bore a rosy hue. Clad in a gold and crimson brocade robe adorned with cloud patterns, he exuded the scent of tulips. He was seated at a table, pouring wine from a plain silver pot into his white jade cup, and at Yu Xiuyou's words, his hand trembled, nearly spilling the liquid. With a voice as delicate as a flower, Hong Yang frowned in displeasure. What do you mean by day in and day out? I have no interest in him. Get to the point, Yu Xiuyou replied, resuming his seat, pouring himself a cup of wine. and drinking it down in one go. The Chien de Marquis has long ceased its involvement in military affairs. This Zhou Jinxi possesses a certain intrigue. Hong Yang, with his slender jade finger, playfully poked at Yu Xiao's handsome chin, teasingly inquiring, is it Zhou Jinxi who is intriguing, or is it his breathtaking little wife who piques your interest? Yu Xiao gently brushed aside Hong Yang's finger, his own long, fair fingers distinctly elegant. With a touch of solitude in his voice, he remarked, I sense that she is somewhat unhinged, though she appears lively. There is an underlying anxiety, a palpable fear, though I cannot discern the source of her dread. Hong Yang smiled charmingly, exuding an enchanting allure, and replied, indeed, much like someone else. Out of fear, they flee from everything, even adopting such a moniker as Yu Xiao. Just because your name means carefree, does that truly confer upon you a sense of freedom? Yu Xiao remained silent, casting a sidelong glance at him with eyes as profound as the stars, their meaning ambiguous. That glance was both radiant like flowing light and as chilling as ice. For reasons unknown, Hong Yang felt a shiver run through him. He then spoke earnestly, as for Zhou Jinxi, I find him inscrutable. He appears gentle on the surface, yet harbors deep schemes within. He is a master of deception. The young lady of General Feng's household will likely find herself ensnared in his grasp. Sooner or later, she will become a mere pawn in his game, manipulated at his will. Is that so? It seems these two individuals, and this matter, hold a certain fascination. Yu Xiao mused, narrowing his eyes as he whispered, in truth, I have been rather idle of late. At the foot of Yanlian Mountain, the night was as cold as water. In the upper chamber of the Yanlian Mountain Inn, Zhou Jinxi was fervently scribbling away. Several crumpled papers scattered across his desk. Clearly, Zhou Jinxi was in a state of turmoil. He could never have anticipated that the chessboard he meticulously laid out would be so thoroughly disrupted by the seemingly insignificant piece, Feng Zui, a mere woman. Yet she dared to reject the heir of the Duke of Shuangde, a man of striking elegance and charm. How audacious of her! Zhou Jinxi was consumed by indignation, the veins in his neck visibly throbbing. After taking several deep breaths, he regained his composure and summoned his trusted aide, instructing him to find a few individuals and relay his intentions. As he detailed his orders, the aide could not help but inquire, young master, is it truly wise? That is the daughter of General Feng. Zhou Jinxi cast a cold, piercing glance in his direction. Are you questioning my judgment or attempting to instruct me? The aide shrank back, hastily bowing as he replied, I would not dare, my lord. I shall make the arrangements at once. Watching the aide depart, Zhou Jinxi settled back into his chair, a cruel smile curling at the corners of his mouth. The daughter of General Feng is merely a woman. What nobility does she possess? It would be an honor for her to be desired by me. Lost in contemplation, he was suddenly startled by a noise outside the window. He swiftly rose and flung it open, shouting, Who goes there? The night air was empty, save for the chilling breeze that swept in. Zhou Jinxi scanned the darkness. And just then, a gray sparrow fluttered from the rooftop and took flight. A mere sparrow? He relaxed, shutting the window once more. Meanwhile, two figures, one clad in red and the other in white, gracefully descended from the rooftop and vanished into the night. At that moment, Feng Zui, within the general's estate, was preoccupied with examining several large, fluffy buns before her, blissfully unaware of the machinations being plotted against her. Chapter 74. The sorrowful name of Zui Xi. Feng Zui. She gazed at the steamed bun before her, lifting it to her nose for a whiff, then taking a tentative bite. Compared to others, it bore a faint bitterness laced with sweetness. Was it the essence of the mandala flower? Or perhaps the flavor of licorice or asarum? For now, she could not discern. It dawned on her that someone had been administering a slow poison to her mother all along. A deep-seated hatred welled within her. She was increasingly convinced that there were indeed those plotting against her family. There must be someone orchestrating Huang Po's actions from the shadows. Hong Yin stood beside her, indignation evident in her voice. My informant in the kitchen revealed that every day, the steamed buns are personally handled by that Huang Po, who oversees the kitchen. Even if she isn't the one preparing them, she is responsible for sourcing the ingredients. The taste of this bun mirrors that of my mother, Madame Liang. Miss, shall we capture Huang Po? Hong Yin asked, urgency lacing her tone. Not just yet. Let us continue to monitor her, observing the meals she prepares. We should find a couple of loyal young servants to discreetly gather information outside the estate, Feng Zui, she replied. I have already identified 3 or 4 young servants in the outer courtyard and on the estate, as well as shopkeepers in the city who can lend us their assistance. Hong Yin responded. Feng Zui regarded Hong Ying with gratitude. You have worked tirelessly for me. Hong Ying. You should also consider training a couple of younger maidservants to attend to you. Once you marry. Upon hearing this, Hong Ying fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Miss, do not abandon me. I shall not marry. I wish to protect you forever. Feng Zui gently supported her, noting that the young maidservant was still beautiful and youthful. When she had been cast into the well, she had been nearing 30. The burdens she bore had worn her down, leaving her with a haggard appearance and even strands of gray hair, yet she remained unmarried. Hong Ying, if you truly care for me, you must heed my wishes and align your heart with mine. If you are unhappy, I shall find no joy. Feng Zui said earnestly, assisting her to her feet. Hong Ying gazed into her lovely eyes and replied, Miss, I merely worry for your well-being. Your lady must grow up on her own, Feng Zui asserted. I desire for you to thrive. You are 19 now. It is time for you to marry. As the two conversed, the window suddenly swung open from the outside. A gust of cold wind swept into the room, accompanied by a figure clad in white who floated in. Who goes there? Hong Ying exclaimed. Fear not, it is someone I know. Hong Ying, you may step outside. Feng Zui reassured her, recognizing the visitor. Though still somewhat perplexed, Hong Ying complied and exited. Feng Zui took a pinch of tea leaves from a wooden box on the table, grasped an iron kettle from her main room, and poured a cup of tea, presenting it to Yu Xiao. It is chilly tonight. Please enjoy some tea to warm yourself, young master Yu. Yu Xiao accepted the cup, took a sip, and savored it. Anshi Yulu, indeed fragrant and palatable. Feng Zui sat opposite him, her eyes twinkling with a gentle smile as she regarded Yu Xiao. I am glad you enjoy it. Do you seek me for a matter of urgency? The room was illuminated solely by a single oil lamp. And the saying holds true, the beauty appears more radiant under the lamp's glow. Yu Xiao's gaze flickered, while Feng Zui's captivating eyes met his own. After a moment, he felt his cheeks flush and averted his gaze, pondering her words. Today, I have come to remind you, young lady, that your fiancé may harbor ill intentions towards you. Yu Xiao, with a slightly dry throat, spoke in one breath, handing the cup to Feng Zui, requesting another drink. Feng Zui accepted the cup, poured him some tea, and returned it. By a curious coincidence, their fingers brushed lightly, prompting Feng Zui to quickly withdraw her hand, while Yu Xiao, unprepared, let the cup slip from his grasp. Just as the cup was about to shatter upon hitting the floor, Yu Xiao deftly hooked his foot, stopping it with precision, not a single drop of water spilled. Feng Zui could not help but exclaim in admiration, Master Yu, what remarkable skill. Yu Xiao beamed in response, thank you for your kind words. But may I ask the name of this fair maiden? Feng Zui returned his smile, my name is Zui, Feng Zui. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiao pondered for a moment and recited, drunkenly admiring spring garments, cherishing the old fragrance. Heaven brings forth parting sorrows, wild and unrestrained. Year after year. Autumn grass grows on the paths, day after day, the setting sun graces the tower. Your name is melodious, tender, and subtle, he remarked. Yet internally, he mused that while the name was pleasing, its connotation was rather ominous, for the latter part of the poem reads, clouds are vast, waters are boundless. The way home for the traveler is long. Longing is but an unsubstantiated word, do not waste tears on flowered paper. This poem speaks of a bride lamenting her husband as conscription, expressing boundless sorrow and slight pain in the reminiscence of joyful pasts. Those who bear such a name may not find a favorable destiny. He contemplated this while sipping his tea, only to burn his lips, exclaiming softly. Feng Zui, observing his expression, unaware of his thoughts, simply cautioned, Master Yu, that water is freshly boiled and very hot. However, Yu Xiao's now rosy lips had already been scalded, glistening with moisture. At that moment, a loud voice from outside broke the atmosphere. It was Hong Ying, deliberately raising her voice, Madam, why are you still awake so late? Young lady, do not sleep any longer. Madam has come to see you. Then came the voice of her mother, Madam Liang. Hong Ying, you silly girl, stop shouting. They can hear you from 2 miles away. The whole city must have been awakened by your cries. Upon hearing this, Feng Zui could not help but stifle a laugh, only to turn around and find that Yu Xiao had vanished entirely. Chapter 35. Your house is haunted. Feng Zui gazed at the utterly vacant table, where even the cup of tea she had poured for Yu Xiao had vanished. Only a faint ring of water remained, demonstrating that this fellow was quite efficient in his actions. Had he slipped out through the window again? His agility was remarkable, not a sound to be heard. As Feng Zui lost herself in her thoughts, her mother, Madame Liang, entered the room. Startled, Feng Zui rose abruptly and inquired, "Mother, what brings you here at such a late hour?" Madame Liang's brow was furrowed with a hint of melancholy. Assuming she wished to discuss Zhou Jingxi, Feng Zui poured her a cup of tea, placing it where the remnants of Yu Shuo's cup lay. However, to her surprise, her mother broached a different subject. "Cici, did you recently deal with a maid named Tingmei? Tingmei? Has she not been sent to the estate? Moreover, why would her mother mention such a trivial maid?" Suppressing her curiosity, Feng Zui replied, "Yes, mother. She had been bullying the other maids and even engaged in a brawl with another, so I decided to discipline her. I had her beaten and sent to the estate." Madame Liang continued, "Is it not because she aspired to be your head maid, aiming to become a concubine to the heir of the Xian the Marquis, that you could not tolerate her?" Such words were exceedingly blunt. Feng Zui observed her mother, whose gaze was gentle, devoid of reproach. She nodded and confessed, "Indeed. My husband, my man, I cannot abide anyone's interference. I cannot endure it. Even before our marriage, Tingmei was already scheming to become my husband's mistress. Such behavior is utterly despicable. With such malicious intent, I could never accept her." Madame Liang stared at her daughter, momentarily speechless. In the weighty silence, Feng Zui felt an unusual dampness at the nape of her neck. Had she begun to sweat? That seemed unlikely, for her heart had been tranquil while speaking those words. Yet, the moisture at the back of her neck increased. What could this possibly signify? Suddenly, her mother spoke. "My child, if you cannot tolerate her, then you must handle the matter thoroughly. Such a servant could have been dealt with decisively at the outset." Feng Zui rubbed her ears in disbelief. Was this truly her gentle mother speaking? Was she reproaching her for being too lenient? The dampness at her nape grew more pronounced, as if water were dripping from the ceiling. Was the roof leaking? Had it begun to rain? In a moment of clarity, Feng Zui realized she had overestimated Yu Shuo's skills. He must have taken the cup up to the beams. The moisture at her neck was likely from the tea in that cup. With this thought, she felt a wave of discomfort and instinctively twisted her neck. She needed to usher her mother out quickly, lest the truth be revealed. Noticing her daughter's fidgeting, Madame Liang assumed she was startled by her own words. She quickly added, "Just now, Wang Zhuangtou from the estate reported that Tingmei has developed enmity with the matron guarding her. This evening, she seized the opportunity while the matron was intoxicated and, having overpowered her, escaped through a small door she had been watched from." "What? Tingmei has committed murder, and she has fled?" Feng Zui was utterly astonished. In her previous life, Tingmei had betrayed her after 7 or 8 years, yet now, Tingmei was merely 16, and had already displayed such ruthlessness. However, as a frail woman and an escaped slave, her contract of servitude still resided within the general's estate, leaving her without any identity or means of escape. Furthermore, she bit down on her snow-white teeth, pondering whether Yu Shuo could manage to consume that cup of tea. The fabric at the nape of her neck was completely drenched. At that moment, Liang spoke up, stating that someone had already been dispatched from the village to pursue Tingmei, and the authorities had been notified to apprehend her. Suddenly, she halted mid-sentence, her expression frozen as she pointed at the beam above Feng Zui's head, her voice trembling slightly. "Shichi, is there a ghost haunting your room? There appears to be a white figure floating." Unable to bear it, Feng Zui instinctively covered her eyes, unwilling to look directly. Chapter 36. Are you a fool? On a pitch-black winter night, the small town at the foot of Yan Lianshan lay in serene tranquility. However, within the chambers of the general's esteemed daughter, Feng Zui, there was an atmosphere thick with tension. The room housed only 3 individuals, yet an unsettling aura permeated the air. Madame Liang, the general's wife, sat composedly, while her restless daughter, Feng Zui, stood anxiously. The only man who should not be present was the dashing Yu Shuo, who hung precariously from the rafters above. Seated at the table, Madame Liang took a delicate sip of tea, glancing at her daughter standing rigidly before her. Then casting her eyes upon the ethereal figure of Yu Shuo, clad in flowing white garments, who precariously held a teacup between his lips. In truth, Yu Shuo felt anything but carefree. He was in agony, having remained suspended for far too long. His limbs were numb, and his entire body felt paralyzed. The flow of his vital energy stifled. Yet, the atmosphere was so thick with tension that even the general's wife, despite the discomfort of his predicament, did not dare to order him down. He remained motionless, even the strain on his jaw from clutching the teacup causing him discomfort. Yu Xiao mused to himself. Am I being caught in a compromising position by my future mother-in-law? No, that's not quite right. It's more like being caught in the rafters. He felt a wave of despair wash over him. At least those caught in bed enjoy some semblance of comfort. What on earth was he enduring up here? Moreover, this was only their second encounter, and she already had a fiancé. Her mother certainly could not be his future mother-in-law. As these thoughts swirled in his mind, Yu Xiao's handsome face contorted in frustration. He felt utterly wronged. He had merely been performing a good deed, saving a life, and yet here he was, having leaped through the window to aid a damsel in distress. How had he ended up in this predicament? Meanwhile, the scoundrel, Zhou Jinxi, the heir of the Duke of Shuanda, was likely sleeping soundly, leaving Yu Xiao seething with indignation. The fate of the virtuous was indeed fraught with peril. Lost in his reverie, he was suddenly jolted back to reality by the sharp sound of Madame Liang slamming her teacup onto the table, causing it to tremble. She finally addressed Feng Zui. Sisi, is it for this man that you wish to break off your engagement with the heir of the Duke of Shuanda? Yu Xiao thought to himself, this has nothing to do with me at all. Feng Zui, with a gentle smile, replied, Mother, you are indeed astute. It is true. I have fallen deeply in love with young Master Yu. Our hearts are intertwined, blessed by fate, and I shall marry no one but him. Her words flowed effortlessly, imbued with sincerity. Were he not the subject of her affections, Yu Xiao might have been moved to believe her declarations. Madame Liang rubbed her temples, appearing deeply troubled. Alas, children are indeed a burden. Your 3 brothers are all still single, which has already caused me endless concern, and now you two are a source of worry. Bring him down, I wish to hear his thoughts. Feng Zui immediately brightened, turning to Yu Xiao above and waving her hand gently. Brother Yu, please calm down. Mother is no longer angry. Yu Xiao pondered. It seems your mother is still quite upset, and what is this brother Yu nonsense? I have no connection with you. He gracefully leaped down from the beam. Beside him, Feng Zui hurried forward, eagerly and obsequiously retrieving the cup from his mouth. Yu Xiao retorted. What nonsense were you spouting just now? I have not a single copper coin's worth of relation with you. Do clarify things with your mother. Before he could finish his sentence, Feng Zui swiftly returned the teacup to his lips. Turning to her mother, Madame Liang, she playfully explained, Mother, do not heed his words. He is merely shy. That insufferable girl, how outrageous. Yu Xiao was utterly exasperated. He forcefully removed the teacup from his mouth and bowed respectfully to Madame Liang. Asserting with utmost sincerity, Madame Feng, you are mistaken. I share no relationship with your daughter, nor is it love at first sight. We are but newly acquainted. Having met only twice, we are still strangers. His declaration was that of a paragon of virtue. Indeed, he was a gentleman. Yet, he sensed the atmosphere in the room grow increasingly peculiar. Madame Feng's expression darkened, her countenance reflecting her displeasure as she exclaimed. You dare sneak into my daughter's chamber after just a brief acquaintance. What a shameless scoundrel you are. What nonsense. A scoundrel? Yu Xiao felt as though he had stumbled into a treacherous pit, lamentably one of his own making. Meanwhile, Feng Zui cast him a sidelong glance, her eyes seemingly conveying a message. You must be quite the fool, indeed. Chapter 37. This fellow is a deceptive scoundrel. Madame Liang scrutinized the young man before her. He was tall and slender, adorned with a face so striking that it could incite envy among both mortals and deities alike. Clad in garments as white as snow, he stood with an upright posture, exuding an aura of elegance akin to that of a noble orchid or jade tree, seemingly radiating light. His beauty was indeed remarkable. However, the heir of the Shuanda Marquis, Zhou Jinxi, though also a handsome and respectable youth, appeared rather dim in comparison to this individual named Yu Xiao. It was no wonder her daughter had taken this lad as a shield against unwelcome advances. Though Madame Liang seemed delicate, she was not devoid of wisdom. Feng Zui had long confided her past life as if it were a prophetic dream. Thus she was acutely aware that her daughter would go to great lengths to annul the engagement. While her encounter with Zhou Jinxi had indeed instilled a sense of trepidation towards him and the Shuanda Marquis, withdrawing from the engagement would not be a simple affair. The love a parent bears for their child often leads to profound considerations. She cherished her daughter and desired to honor her wishes of ending the engagement while preserving her reputation. Her thought process revolved around the notion that her daughter must find another suitable husband. However, Zhou Jinxi did not strike her as a magnanimous man. His gaze bore a hint of vengefulness. Should her family offend the Shuanda Marquis by breaking the engagement, and if her daughter were to subsequently seek a spouse from a weaker lineage, they might very well face retaliation from the Marquis. Therefore, Madame Liang aspired to find a family of equal or greater standing to shield her daughter, ensuring that the husband himself would not be lacking in strength. Yet unbeknownst to her, Feng Zui had long since resolved, due to the matters of her past life, that she would not settle for anything less than her heart's true desire, regardless of any ensuing turmoil. Moreover, she had vowed to remain unmarried in this lifetime, choosing instead to protect her parents and brothers, living out her days in solitude. Feng Zui's resolve was not solely for her family's sake. She simply had no desire to marry in this life. Whether wed to a high-ranking official or a wealthy merchant, which man could claim to be free of concubines, demanding mothers-in-law, or scheming sisters-in-law? The very thought of troublesome relatives vying for family fortunes, or a meddlesome aunt intent on marrying off her cousin to her husband, was enough to induce a headache. Most terrifying of all were those who would resort to heinous deeds, such as murdering loyal handmaidens or administering poison, merely to secure their own status as the principal wife. In this lifetime, she wished to be free from servitude and the burdens of such entanglements. Feng Zui had envisioned a life dedicated to safeguarding her family, amassing wealth, and eventually embarking on a solitary journey across the splendid mountains and rivers of the world. Whether under the soft light of dawn, the fiery glow of dusk, or amidst the tranquil embrace of night, she yearned to follow her own inclinations and engage in pursuits that brought her joy. Yet, before she could embark on this path, she intended to ensure that her past adversaries faced their due reckoning. At this moment, Madame Liang inquired, "Young Master Yu Xiao, are you implying that the heir of the Scorned Marquis harbors ill intentions towards my daughter? Have you come to deliver a warning?" In the fleeting moment when Feng Zui was lost in thought, Yu Xiao had already conveyed the reason for his nocturnal visit to the daughter's chamber to Madame Feng. In her eyes, Yu Xiao had transformed from a shameless scoundrel into a valiant hero, one who stood up for the defenseless. "Indeed, yesterday at Miu Xiang's studio, I encountered your daughter and the heir of the Scorned Marquis, and I discerned something amiss in Shou Jinxi's gaze. Concerned for her safety, I made a late-night visit and, to my alarm, witnessed him instructing his subordinates to act against Miss Feng. Fearing that the night might yield unforeseen troubles, I felt compelled to intervene. Yu Xiao, with an air of unblemished integrity, could not have been more virtuous." "Miu Xiang's studio? Cici, with whom did you visit Miu Xiang's studio? Weren't you supposed to be at the Bodhi Zen temple to pay homage?" Liang Shi, however, detected a flaw in Yu Xiao's narrative and inquired of Feng Zui. Feng Zui cast a silent glance at Yu Xiao, exasperated with his antics. Approaching her mother, she explained, "Mother, a group of military officials accompanied a high-ranking court officer to the Bodhi Zen temple, and we were asked to leave the mountain. Coincidentally, at the foot of the mountain, I encountered my dance instructor, Madame Wu, who mentioned a delightful vegetarian restaurant and invited me to Miu Xiang's studio." Liang Shi nodded in understanding, remarking, "Ah, I see. That is quite reasonable. Although Madame Wu is a dancer, she is still a woman and your instructor. It is not inappropriate to share a vegetarian meal after failing to pay homage. Indeed, my dear daughter and that Madame Wu merely dined together, and your daughter, being righteous, even assisted Madame Wu in confronting a scoundrel who sought to deceive her." Yu Xiao hastily defended Feng Zui. Feng Zui shot Yu Xiao a sidelong glance, pondering whether he was intentionally leading her into a trap. "What? You also got into a scuffle? Were there men present at the meal?" Liang Shi's voice rose, her expression one of incredulity. Chapter 38, Choosing a weapon. After much effort and a bit of coaxing, Feng Zui finally managed to explain everything to her mother. "Oh, you troublemaker. You mustn't act so recklessly in the future. It's far too dangerous." Liang Shi chided, her finger tapping gently on Feng Zui's forehead, though her concern and affection far outweighed her reprimand. Beside them, Yu Xiao observed the tender interaction between mother and daughter, a pen of envy flickering in his eyes. How wonderful it must be to have a mother like that, to experience such warmth. Alas, he knew he would never know that feeling, all because of those people. He clenched his fists. Liang Shi smiled, saying, "I appreciate your concern for my daughter, young Master Yu. However, in the future, please refrain from climbing through windows. The general's residence has doors, after all." The humor in the general's wife's words struck Yu Xiao. He bowed, replying, "Your message has been conveyed. I shall take my leave." Liang Shi nodded, "Safe travels, young Master Yu." Yu Xiao turned and gracefully opened the window, executing a swift leap out with remarkable agility. As he vanished into the night, Liang Shi's voice lingered. "The general's residence has doors." Feng Zui exchanged a glance with her mother, both unable to suppress their amused smiles. Liang Shi remarked, That young Master Yu is quite impressive. I wonder what family he hails from, what his father does, and whether he holds an official position. What is his family's fortune? Feng Zui quickly assisted her mother, laughing, Dear mother, overthinking leads to aging. Our descendants will find their own fortune. The night is deepening. Let me escort you to your chamber for rest. Indeed, some matters require careful consideration, Liang Shi said affectionately, stroking her daughter's head. Next time you speak with young Master Yu, remind him not to leap through windows. Feng Zui was taken aback. Having forgotten to mention the buns and Aunt Huang in her surprise, the household settled down, leaving those matters unspoken. Thus passed a quiet day. Although her father and 3 brothers were absent, Feng Zui diligently practiced martial arts and swordplay with the household's martial instructor. In recent days, Wu Changshi had taken leave, presumably to address personal matters. Consequently, Feng Zui devoted herself to her training, fully aware that her open enemies included Zhou Jingxi, Zhang Wenyuan, Himei, Lu Dejiao, and Aunt Huang, while the identities of those who secretly wished her family harm remained unknown. Thus, she resolved to enhance her martial prowess and self-defense capabilities. Not only did she train alone, but she also enlisted the help of 2 loyal young servants, alongside Hong Ying and Hong Guo, to practice with her. These 2 young servants were a bit older, 18 years of age. The slender one, named Chengxiola, was the clever nephew of her mother's close maid, while the younger, 13-year-old Wang Mengzi, was sturdy and notably honest. Being born into the household, both young men possessed some martial skills from their fathers. Feng Zui has devoted over a month to practicing standing meditation and archery. Today, the martial arts master at her home allowed her to select a weapon, marking the commencement of her earnest training. In the realm of martial arts, the phrase 18 martial skills refers to 18 types of weaponry, typically encompassing the bow, crossbow, spear, staff, dagger, sword, halberd, shield, axe, guando, trident, whip, hammer, fork, spade, and ji. In truth, the arsenal of martial arts extends far beyond these 18, as the inclusion of various exotic weapons and concealed projectiles could easily surpass 100. For the past month, Feng Zui has diligently honed her archery skills, and her proficiency with the bow has grown remarkably precise. She has never confided to anyone that her rigorous practice stems from her aspiration to one day step onto the battlefield and assist her family in combat. Observing her dedication, Hong Guo and Hong Ying have also joined her in practice. Although Hong Ying's accuracy does not match Feng Zui's, she is nonetheless formidable. Surprisingly, Hong Guo, with her background in slingshot shooting, has taken to archery with remarkable speed, even surpassing Feng Zui in accuracy. Now, standing before the armory, her gaze swept across the array of weapons, spears, staffs, daggers, swords, halberds, shields, axes, guando, tridents, whips, hammers, forks, spades, and ji. She inquired of the master, Master, may I practice with 2 weapons? The master, taken aback, replied, Miss, it is indeed possible, but you must be prepared to exert yourself even more. Given that you began your training later and as a woman, you may face challenges when sparring with men. Dressed in a martial arts outfit that shimmered like moonlight, Feng Zui appeared strikingly valiant. She responded with poise, My father once said that defeat is more honorable than cowardice. I am committed to my training, hoping to focus intently and grow stronger without dwelling on unnecessary thoughts. Hong Ying, Hong Guo, and their 2 young attendants gazed at her with admiration, expressing their desire to select weapons for dedicated practice. After a while, the training grounds buzzed with excitement as the group immersed themselves in their vigorous martial arts practice. Chapter 39. A disturbance at the training ground. Against the stone wall of the training ground, Yu Shao leaned pensively, resting his chin on his hand, and remarked, Defeat is more honorable than cowardice. It seems that Feng Jinzhang is indeed a capable general. I wonder if this girl desires to learn lightness skills. Ultimately, Feng Zui chose 2 weapons, a whip and a longsword, while her practice with the bow and arrow remained unrelenting. Hong Ying opted for the saber, and Hong Guo selected the dual hammers. The 2 young attendants, known as Chengxiola, also trained with sabers, while the robust Wang Mengzi chose dual hammers as well. Feng Zui observed them with a smile, saying, You all seem to have conspired together. While Feng Zui was engaged in her training, Hong Guo furtively cast glances in her direction. After several moments of silence, Hong Ying could no longer contain herself and spoke up, Hong Guo, if you have something to say, just say it. Do not hesitate before the young lady. With a playful smile, Hong Guo replied, Miss, I wish to visit the elderly Kong Kong Soul. Would you care to join me? Upon hearing this, Feng Zui suddenly recalled that Kong Kong's soul had been injured and was receiving treatment at the city's medical hall. She responded, very well. Let us go and pay our respects to him. Half an hour later, a carriage departed from the general's residence, heading towards the Guichang Hall in the southern part of the city. Upon arrival at Guichang Hall, they encountered a raucous gathering at the entrance, bustling with activity. Noticing the crowd's commotion, Hong Ying assisted Feng Zui in donning a veil to obscure her face before they alighted from the carriage. There! A burly middle-aged man was vociferously berating the establishment, while inside, several young men resembling doctors appeared furious, their faces flushed with indignation. Beside the middle-aged man lay a mat, upon which a younger, sturdily built man sat cradling a fainting youth in his arms. The boy's face was ashen, and blood seeped from his abdomen, staining the mat crimson, indicating his dire condition. You dare to claim you save lives and heal the wounded? Bah! You are clearly witnessing death and doing nothing, treating human lives as mere weeds. The middle-aged man, with a thick beard and eyes wide as copper bells, was clearly beside himself with rage. A young doctor, standing at the door of Huichang Hall, responded. Your brother is gravely injured and beyond help. Even divine intervention could not save him. Pressuring us is futile since the claws of that bear are exceedingly sharp. This is no jest. Upon hearing this, Feng Zui noticed a massive brown bear's corpse beside the mat. It seemed that these were hunters. The burly man, upon hearing the doctor, immediately erupted in a fit of rage. With a voice choked with grief, he shouted, How can you declare him dead without treatment? He still breathes. His fingers can still move. I have stated that if you attempt to save him and he does not survive, we will accept that. But now you refuse even to try and claim he is doomed. What right do you have to call yourselves doctors? Such cowardice is truly shameless. At this moment, Hong Ying stepped forward and addressed the burly man. Sir, we have come to the medical hall to visit a friend. Please allow us to pass. Hong Ying initially feared that the man, in his fury, would direct his wrath towards her. To her surprise, the burly man, upon hearing her words, immediately stepped aside and gestured invitingly. It appeared that although he seemed coarse, he was indeed quite courteous, refraining from directing his ire towards the innocent. Feng Zui could not help but regard the man with newfound respect. Hong Ying promptly expressed her gratitude, and Feng Zui, through a gentle smile, acknowledged him with a nod. The trio then proceeded into the Huichangtan. Upon entering, the physician at Huichangtan noticed the arrival of three ladies seeking an audience with the esteemed Kong Kong. Without delay, a servant escorted them to a private chamber in the rear courtyard. Chapter 40. The Promise of the Old Man and the Steamed Buns of Illness. The trio traversed through the front hall, crossed a grand chamber, and arrived at the rear courtyard. In the courtyard, 6 rooms stood in an orderly arrangement. 2 of the rooms served as pharmacies. 2 were designated for the doctor's work and rest, and the remaining 2 were for patients unable to depart temporarily. The old man resided in one of these quarters. Upon entering the old man's sick room, they found him engaged in conversation with a young man. His expression brightened at their arrival, and he jovially exclaimed, Ah, my dear lady heroes have come. Please, do come in. This is Tian Youfu, the young master of Huichangtan. Tian Youfu and Feng Zui exchanged courtesies. Noting the furrowed brow and troubled visage of the young master, Feng Zui inquired, Are you troubled by the ruckus outside? Tian Youfu glanced at her and nodded, Indeed. They have caused a commotion all morning, hurling such vile insults. How can we conduct business under these circumstances? Feng Zui replied. I believe the brother causing the disturbance is pitiable as well. He mentioned that even if the situation is dire, he would not blame the clinic. After all, it concerns a human life. Why not give it a try? With a sense of resignation, Tian Youfu responded, Miss, I too wish to save lives. Yet I am burdened with my own unspoken troubles. Unspoken troubles? The gazes of the 3 fell inquisitively upon him. Ah, you misunderstand, the old man interjected. This lad is merely the young master. The true authority of Huichangtan is his father, Tian Maocheng, an old friend of mine. Tian Maocheng possesses exceptional medical skills. But this young man is still in training and lacks the ability to treat the injured individual outside. Then let Dr. Tian assist the man at the entrance. He appears gravely wounded and has lost a considerable amount of blood, urged Hongguo, her concern palpable. Tian Youfu shook his head vigorously, exclaiming with disdain. That is out of the question. We resolutely refuse to treat someone on the brink of death. Such words suggested deeper implications. What has befallen Dr. Tian? Feng Zui queried. Sighing heavily, Tian Youfu lamented, My father resides in the adjacent patient room. Not long ago, he selflessly treated the ailing son of a wealthy merchant, only for the man to succumb. The merchant, in his fury, ordered his servants to beat my father, inflicting internal injuries upon him. He now suffers from a relentless fever and remains in a state of unconsciousness. We will not extend our efforts to those on the verge of death. The three felt a surge of indignation, yet Feng Zui asserted, nevertheless, a physician's benevolence should not wane. We cannot turn a blind eye to the sanctity of life. Perhaps they could draft an agreement stating that if the patient does not survive, the clinic cannot be held accountable. A contract? The old man and Tian Youfu exchanged intrigued glances. The old man, quick to respond, said, certainly. Once drafted, even if the treatment is unsuccessful, the medical fees must still be paid. I still possess some of my healing powder. It is 1 gold tael per vial. The trio exchanged glances, recalling that the old man had indeed provided them with a vial of this medicine. Was it truly so costly? Observing their expressions, the old man jested, fear not. I shan't demand a gold tael from you. You have saved both my life and that of Atao. In that case, I indeed owe you a debt. While I may not be able to provide much, should any of you require medicinal remedies in the future, do not hesitate to seek out this old man. Feng Zui and her companions were exceedingly pleased. Their family had risen to prominence through perilous endeavors, and possessing effective healing potions would be nothing short of a blessing. At that moment, Feng Zui cast a glance, prompting Hong Guo to produce a bundle. The old man, Kong So, was filled with delight and exclaimed, "What delightful treats do we have? Steamed buns." However, his expression soured as he gazed at the several large buns in Hong Guo's hands, pouting in disappointment. Who visits a sick person bearing steamed buns? Chapter 41. An adventure to heal wounds. The expression on the face of the venerable Kong was grave. The bun must contain belladonna. It is poisonous. Feng Zui's gaze was sharp, and a plan began to form in her mind. First, she should tend to the injured youth at the entrance. In her previous life, Feng Zui was often unwell, prompting the emperor to frequently dispatch court physicians from the imperial hospital to attend to her ailments. Through her prolonged illness, she inadvertently acquired a wealth of medical knowledge. Moreover, she had often heard tales of her father and brothers suffering injuries in battle, and she yearned to assist them in some way. Upon learning that her second brother had sustained a grievous wound to his back, bleeding profusely, Feng Zui was consumed with urgency and resolved to master the techniques for treating external injuries. The physician who taught her was none other than the renowned expert in external injuries, the Ghost Blade, Shen Biuyou. The very name Ghost Blade suggested that Shen Biuyou's skills in this domain were nothing short of extraordinary. Feng Zui studied under Shen Biuyou for nearly 7 years, acquiring a mastery of external treatment techniques to a remarkable degree. Venerable Elder Kong, might I attempt to assist? I am adept with a blade, and my technique is swift. I can help him, but I require your guidance and support, Feng Zui declared, causing those around her to gasp in astonishment. Moments later, Hong Yin ushered the burly man inside, who remained seething with anger, his eyes filled with indignation and anxiety. Feng Zui spoke with unwavering composure. We are prepared to treat your brother, but there is one condition. You must sign a contract stating that, regardless of the outcome, you shall not hold the medical establishment accountable, and you will cover the costs of treatment and medicine. The bearded giant immediately bristled with anger. On what grounds? Feng Zui maintained her calm demeanor. Your brother's fate is dire, regardless of where he is. We are merely attempting to help. If you are dissatisfied, you are free to seek assistance at any of the other dozen medical establishments in the city. The burly man hesitated briefly, fully aware that the Rejuvenation Hall was the finest clinic in town, and if they could not see him here, hope would be lost elsewhere. With only a moment's pause, he signed the contract with his name, Yuan Gochi. Feng Zui was taken aback upon seeing this name. She had heard it more than once in her previous life. Yuan Gochi had a brother named Lu Zhaoning, and both hailed from a family of hunters before enlisting in the military. They were renowned generals of the Great Xiao Kingdom, having repeatedly defeated the incursions of the Eastern Yi. Their exploits were highly praised by her father, and they were often commended by the emperor in the capital. Curiously, these two men, originating from the northwestern borders at the foot of Yanlian Mountain, had chosen to serve the northeastern imperial army. Her father had sought to recruit them, only to be met with their cold rejection. In her previous life, she had only heard of Yuan Gochi and Lu Zhaoning, with no mention of the injured field brother. It seemed that the field brother had perished in her past life, and the two brothers' unwillingness to remain in the northwest might stem from lingering regrets. Feng Zui immediately set about her preparations. If she could save the field brother, perhaps she could persuade Yuan Gouqi and Lu Xiaoning to serve her father, aiding in the battles against the northern Di and the western Rome. With such formidable warriors, the odds of her father's success in combat would undoubtedly increase substantially. Hong Yin, please ask Xiao Lu to procure the softest white cotton fabric, and instruct Man Zi to fetch 2 large pots. You all shall boil the cotton cloth in water and then hang it out to dry in the courtyard, Feng Zui she commanded with determination. Hong Guo, use a small pot to boil water and sterilize those tools. Feng Zui she was filled with vigor, finally able to do something meaningful for her father and brothers. Dr. Tian, please prepare some strong liquor for disinfecting wounds and a tonic soup to replenish energy and blood. On the roof of the medical hall, 2 figures, one clad in red and the other in white, sat conversing. Hong Nian Air remarked, you truly have an abundance of leisure time. Yet is it possible that Feng Zui she is genuinely a lady of noble birth? How astonishing. Chapter 42. The first hearing Yu Shao languidly inquired. What is the matter? The news from the capital suggests that this young lady is a virtuous and gentle woman, exceedingly delicate. Hearing is one thing, seeing is another. I am curious to discover what surprises she may unveil. With keen interest, Yu Xiaoyao's profound gaze fixated on the beautiful countenance of the woman in the courtyard. The young girl radiated with vibrant vitality and indomitable spirit, causing a subtle ripple to awaken in his once stagnant heart. At present, Feng Zui felt a tight knot of anxiety within her. The young man outside had already been carried to the guest room in the back courtyard by his 2 sworn brothers. This youth, approximately 17 or 18 years of age, though pale as a sheet, still bore a strikingly handsome visage. The room had been prepared, with a large wooden table positioned centrally, upon which the young man lay. The physician from the revival hall had administered a homemade anesthetic, rendering his consciousness somewhat hazy. Adjacent to him lay a large wooden tray containing sterilized scissors, fine daggers, cotton cloth, needles, and thread. Several bottles of wound ointment and healing salve were also present. Feng Zui and the others wore cloth masks to cover their mouths and noses. She picked up the scissors and deftly cut open the young man's shirt, revealing his abdomen, marred by 3 deep, claw-like gashes. Fortunately, the wounds were not too deep and had spared his vital organs. However, the excessive blood loss rendered the injuries ghastly, and his complexion was pallid. Let him suck on a ginseng slice and take another sip of ginseng soup, Feng Zui instructed. Hong Guo promptly complied, aware that this was to bolster the young man's strength. Stay awake, you must remain conscious and tell me your name, Feng Zui urged loudly, speaking to the young man. He strained to open his eyes, gazing at the enchanting woman before him, and weakly replied, I am not sleeping, my name is Ning Qianxiang. Very well. Ning Qianxiang. I am Feng Zui. Stay awake for me, do not drift off, she affirmed. All right, Feng Zui. Feng Zui first used strong liquor to cleanse the wounds on his abdomen, a procedure that would be agonizing. You two, hold his hands and feet firmly. Do not let him move, she instructed Lu Xiaoning and Yuan Gouqi, her 2 brothers. With meticulous care, she proceeded to clean Ning Qianxiang's wounds, while he bit down on a wooden stick, enduring the excruciating pain. His cheeks flushed a fiery red. Taken aback by the realization that the healer tending to him was a stunning girl, even younger than himself, she was presently focused on examining his injuries, and he felt an overwhelming sense of embarrassment. Unperturbed by her own thoughts, Feng Zui diligently cleaned the wounds, employing tweezers to extract the sand and bare fur embedded within. This was a meticulous and laborious task. Before long, fine beads of sweat began to form on her fair forehead. Hong Yin stood by, assisting her by wiping away the perspiration. Although she felt trepidation at the sight of the gruesome wounds, she found encouragement in her mistress's bravery and resolved to assist her with unwavering commitment. At last, the wound was thoroughly cleansed of all impurities. Feng Zui took the sterilized needle and thread, which Hong Yin had prepared, and meticulously began to suture the injury. Several hours elapsed, and she felt an overwhelming fatigue. Her body was in such poor condition that, despite her dedicated efforts, her shoulders and arms ached considerably. The sight of so much blood also made her feel a wave of discomfort and nausea. Taking a deep breath, she summoned her concentration to continue stitching the second and third wounds. Lu Xiaoning remarked, Miss Feng, your needlework is undoubtedly exceptional. The suturing is truly remarkable. Very well, Feng Zui replied, give him a bowl of ginseng soup. If he does not develop high fever tonight, he should be fine by tomorrow morning. Chapter 43. Is Yu Xiaoyao the illegitimate child of her father? As she stepped out of the room, she inhaled deeply, only to be met with a wave of dizziness that enveloped her vision in darkness, causing her to collapse. Her current physique felt excessively frail, unable to withstand any strain. Yet, instead of hitting the ground, she found herself cradled in someone's arms. Yu Xiao, who had just emerged from the chamber, was astonished as he carried Feng Zui. Hong Ying and Hong Guo, who had just exited the room, widened their eyes in disbelief. Young Master Yu, what are you doing here? You mustn't act this way. Hong Ying whispered. Gazing at the gentle girl in his embrace, Yu Xiao inquired, is there a vacant room? She needs to rest. It appears she has exhausted her strength. Surveying their surroundings, Hong Ying noticed that the doctors were preoccupied in the main hall and the adjoining rooms, leaving the courtyard relatively empty. She breathed a sigh of relief and replied, there is no one in the medicine room. I spotted a reclining chair. Let us go there. Hong Guo. Keep watch at the entrance, she instructed. Hong Guo complied, settling on a stool by the medicine room's door, pulling out a slingshot to amuse herself. Carrying Feng Zui, Yu Xiao, along with Hong Ying, made their way into the medicine room. As anticipated, a reclining chair awaited them. Yu Xiao gently placed Feng Zui upon it. I'll step outside. Please fetch some red sugar ginseng soup for your young lady, he directed. Hong Ying glanced at him, then turned to leave. Next to the reclining chair stood a wooden stool, which Yu Xiao dragged over to sit beside Feng Zui, silently observing the girl before him. Her skin was delicately fair, as if it could be easily punctured, her brows resembling distant mountains, eyes tightly shut, lashes gracefully curled, a petite nose, and tightly pressed cherry lips. Yet, her brow was furrowed, hinting at distress and torment. What could trouble a girl of merely a decade or so, born into a life of privilege and affection? Unable to withstand the sight of her worries, Yu Xiao gently stroked her brow, as if wishing to smooth away her troubles. With a deep sigh, he mused. You are not me. How many would wish to see you gone, yet you are so troubled. Young Master Yu, the red sugar ginseng soup has arrived. Hong Ying announced as she re-entered. Yu Xiao deftly accepted the small bowl and spoon filled with the soup. Allow me, I shall do it. Hong Ying hesitated. Without a word, Yu Xiao scooped the soup and steadily fed it to Feng Zui, as though accustomed to serving others. In that moment, Feng Zui's lashes fluttered, and her eyes began to part. Upon awakening, she was met with Yu Xiao's radiant smile, his beauty intensified by the warmth of his expression. Madam Wan. Madam Wan. At the sight of his smile, the name surfaced in Feng Zui's mind, not that of the plain and simple Madam Wan, but of the enchanting figure from her dreams. Adorned in a resplendent golden red gown, akin to a flower fairy. Miss Feng, you are awake? A male voice broke through, bringing her fully to consciousness. As she focused on the figure before her, a look of astonishment crossed her face. Young Master Yu, how did you come to be here? Why do you resemble the Madam Wan from my dreams? Could it be that this young Master Yu is the illegitimate child of my father and that peculiar Madam Wan? She had overthought, burdened by the myriad of conspiracies she had encountered in her past life, leading her to indulge in unfounded musings. The notion that her father had an illegitimate child seemed utterly implausible. Upon hearing her inquiry, Yu Xiao could not reveal that he had been perched upon the rooftop. And thus, he awkwardly chuckled, I merely happened to pass by, just passing by. Feng Zui gazed at the bowl of soup in his hands and asked, were you the one feeding me soup just now? In her previous life, after languishing for so long in illness, her beloved husband, Zhou Jinsi of the Scorned Marquis, had been so apprehensive of contracting her malady that he scarcely entered her chamber, let alone tended to her needs. Noticing the medicinal bowl in Yu Xiao's grasp, she struggled to rise and said, thank you, kind sir, but I shall manage on my own. Yet, as she attempted to move her arms, she found them to be sore and painful, rendering her unable to lift them. This body, indeed, required rigorous strengthening. Yu Xiao spoke softly. One matter should not trouble two parties. When I was 5, my mother fell ill, and for 6 or 7 years, I have tended to her ailment. Therefore, I am quite accustomed to such affairs. Chapter 44. Malady and poison. Upon uttering these words, a somber atmosphere enveloped the room. Feng Zui inquired, is your mother in good health now? A fleeting glimmer of barely perceptible animosity flashed in Yu Xiao's profound black eyes, only to vanish in an instant. He replied, I do not know. When I was 12, my mother fell gravely ill and was sent away for recuperation. My father mentioned having sought the expertise of renowned physicians for her ailment, yet 7 years have elapsed with no word from her. Your father? Feng Zui asked. Her curiosity piqued. To some extent, Yu Xiao remarked, devoid of any emotional inflection. As Feng Zui absorbed his words, an invisible thread seemed to intertwine their past and present, though its essence remained elusive. In her previous life, during her own illness, she often received visits from imperial physicians. Coupled with her studies under the Ghost Blade Master in the treatment of external injuries, she had come to learn of certain palace secrets. Might these secrets bear some connection to Yu Xiao? Feng Zui recalled that the imperial physicians had once divulged that the former emperor's consort, Empress Nian, had also suffered from health issues. The stunningly beautiful Empress Nian frequently donned vibrant garments and adorned herself with intricately jeweled crowns, dancing amidst the blossoms. The emperor lavished her with affection, yet one day, she inexplicably fell ill. Despite her frail constitution, the empress bore the emperor a son after many years within the palace, who was designated as the fifth prince, possessing a striking resemblance to his mother. However, after childbirth, the empress's already delicate health deteriorated further, and she bore no additional children for the emperor. Following an intake of expensive tonics, her condition only worsened, confining her to her sickbed. During this time, the young fifth prince, still a child, frequently visited his mother in the palace to tend to her illness, displaying a commendable devotion that earned him the emperor's favor. However, the empress's prolonged suffering became intolerable to the empress dowager, who sought to install her own niece as the new empress. Not long thereafter, several physicians asserted that the once resplendent Empress Nian had contracted a contagious malady. Consequently, the emperor, despite his reluctance, was compelled to relocate the empress to a separate residence. Eventually, she resided outside the palace, succumbing to her illness in a nunnery. After the empress's demise, the fifth prince met a tragic fate himself, perishing in a horse-riding accident during his teenage years. His life was marked by adversity. He had narrowly escaped drowning, being poisoned, and almost strangled by a palace maid. Though he evaded these calamities, his end was nonetheless harrowing. The fifth prince, remarkable in both appearance and intellect, with exceptional martial prowess, lived to the age of 16. Observing his cleverness and resourcefulness, the emperor held him in high regard and was thoroughly pleased with him. Even without a formidable family background, the emperor still wished to designate him as the crown prince due to his indomitable vitality. However, on the year of his 16th birthday, an unfortunate incident befell him during a hunting expedition with several noble young men. On that fateful day, in the hunting grounds outside the city, they encountered a fierce tiger. The steed ridden by the fifth prince was startled, throwing him to the ground and injuring him beneath its hoofs. In their desperate attempt to rescue him, his noble companions shot arrows at the panicked horse, inadvertently turning the young prince's chest and back into a sieve. Tragically, the fifth prince, gravely wounded, was then set upon by the bloodthirsty tiger, leaving no remains of him behind. This incident stands as perhaps the most harrowing and humiliating demise of a prince in the annals of the Great Xiao dynasty. A shiver coursed through her body as she suddenly recalled the man from her dreams, his visage unrecognizable, arrows piercing his chest and back, and on his shoulder. The head of a tiger. Chapter 45. The heights of Ning Qiansheng. What significance does it hold to be the fairest among the crowd, or to possess extraordinary talent? What does noble lineage matter in the end, when all return to the embrace of the earth without even a single cup of wine? The Empress Nian, mother of the fifth prince, departed this world in silence, while her son met a tragic end. This pair, once poised for a bright future, became mere sacrificial offerings in the ruthless game of power. The fifth prince was but 16 at the time of his demise. 2 years later, 16-year-old Feng Zui arrived in the capital, destined for marriage, separated from him by just a brief span of years. Yet, according to the physicians, Feng Zui seemed to have known the late Empress Nian and the youthful fifth prince long before. She often felt that their fates intertwined, that she too had been poisoned, yet was left without a child to attend to her. Indeed, she once bore a child. Feng Zui recalled the joy she felt during her second year in the household. When she finally became pregnant, it was a moment of elation, particularly as Zhou Jinxi's concubines had already presented him with 2 sons and 2 daughters. The irony was palpable. Here she was, the main wife, yet childless. Upon learning of her pregnancy, the then heir of the Marquis of Scorned, Zhou Jinxi, who was still the heir at that time, as the old Marquis was alive, his expression, along with that of his family, was telling. Regrettably, in her exuberance, she failed to notice the subtle hints around her. At that moment, Feng Zui was oblivious to the fact that her child was unwelcome in the Zhou family. Why was this so? She could not fathom. For this was a child born of love between her and Zhou Jinxi. Superficially, Zhou Jinxi and his parents feigned delight, even expressing eager anticipation for the child's arrival. Yet, unbeknownst to her, her meals were tainted with cold crabs and aquatic fish, and someone had placed a miscarriage-inducing must in the incense burner. On the icy stone path of winter, Water was carelessly spilled, turning it treacherous. Inevitably, she suffered a miscarriage at 4 months, and her health deteriorated, leaving her nearly incapable of conceiving again. Gradually, her vitality waned. Her body weakened, until she lay bedridden, afflicted by a grave illness, ultimately succumbing in the dilapidated courtyard of her home. It was only later that she began to comprehend that someone had indeed sought to harm her child. Feng Zui found herself treading a path similar to that of the late Empress Nian. Were the individuals who conspired against them not also alike? As Yu Shao observed her lost in thought, he waved his hand before her and inquired, "Miss Feng, are you all right?" Feng Zui regarded him, pondering that perhaps she was indeed entranced. Now at the age of 16, the fifth prince should have perished 2 years prior. This Yu Shao appeared to be around 18 or 19. How could he possibly be connected to the fifth prince? Yet, she found herself asking, "Young Master Yu, do you know the fifth prince?" Yu Shao was taken aback, looking at Feng Zui with bewilderment, and replied, "What do you mean, Miss Feng? There is no fifth prince in the Great Xiao dynasty." Feng Zui, struggling to clarify her thoughts, knew that further conversation was necessary. At that moment, Hong Guo dashed in from outside, exclaiming, Miss, the injured person has awakened, but he is experiencing a high fever. What should we do?" Dr. Tian and his team were contemplating ways to reduce his temperature. Upon hearing this, Feng Zui and her companion hurried outside, making their way to the sick room. Inside, the group had gathered around Ning Qianshang's bedside, while Lu Xiaoning and Yuan Gouqi were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. It was evident that Ning Qianshang was indeed suffering from a fever. Pushing through the crowd, Feng Zui approached, only to find Ning Qianshang's entire being appeared as if he were being roasted over a fire. His cheeks were flushed, his eyes slightly open yet devoid of vitality, confirming the presence of a high fever. Chapter 46. Peril at the inn. She glanced around at the assembled crowd and calmly addressed them, "Everyone, please remain composed. His injuries are severe, and it is natural for him to run a fever. If we can endure through the night, he shall awaken refreshed by morning. You too. Apply damp cloths to his forehead to help reduce his temperature. His lips are parched. Moisten a clean cloth and offer him water." Seeing Feng Zui's serene demeanor, the others gradually regained their composure, each attending to their respective tasks with a sense of order. Feng Zui then announced, "I shall not return to the estate tonight. I will secure 2 rooms at the inn across the way, where my maid and servant can rest." She instructed her servant, Wang Xiuman, to return to the estate with news. Yu Shao interjected, "Please reserve a room for me adjacent to yours." Feng Zui understood his kind intentions. Turning to Hong Yin, she said, "Also, arrange a room for young Master Yu next to mine, so we can keep an eye on each other. You and Hong Guo will share a room with me tonight." Feng Zui then ventured to check on Ning Qianshang in his quarters. Noting his steady breathing and a slight reduction in fever, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. At that moment, Yuan Gouqi and Lu Xiaoning approached her, bowing deeply in gratitude, visibly moved as they expressed, "Thank you, young lady. Without your intervention, my brother would surely have perished." Feng Zui replied sincerely, "There is no need for such formality, gentlemen. Though I am not a healer, I acted to preserve a life. How could I stand by and do nothing in the face of death? I am grateful to have saved your brother." Yuan Gouqi and Lu Xiaoning, impressed by Feng Zui's noble spirit, remarked, "You are the true embodiment of compassion, a healer with a benevolent heart." Seeing their favorable regard, Feng Zui felt reassured, thinking that if they could indeed be of service to her father in the future, her efforts would not have been in vain. After bidding farewell to the 2 brothers, Feng Zui and her companions made their way to the night arrival inn across the street. There, Yu Shao awaited them. Feng Zui beamed at the sight of Yu Shao, marveling at his striking handsomeness. In the night, the streets were ablaze with light, bustling with passers-by. Before the inn, adorned with a row of red lanterns, stood the young man clad in a flowing white brocade robe. Indeed, it was the ethereal Yu Shao. His garments billowed gracefully in the cold wind, and he appeared as if descended from the heavens, exuding an aura both noble and unassailable, yet his gaze held a rare tenderness. Upon seeing Feng Zui and her entourage approach, Yu Shao seemed to relax visibly. As they drew near, the 2 exchanged a warm smile and entered the inn together. Inside, they found a quaint 2-story building. The first floor served as the dining hall, furnished with tables and chairs, while the second floor contained the guest rooms. The rooms had already been reserved by Hong Yin. Upon their arrival, the innkeeper warmly greeted them, saying, "Esteemed guests, the 3 deluxe rooms on the second floor have been prepared. Please follow me." They ascended to the second floor of the inn, where Hong Ying and Hong Gu commenced tidying the room. Feng Zui was summoned to Yu Xiaoyao's chamber. Yu Xiaoyao sat at the table in the guest room, where 2 cups of fragrant tea awaited her. Feng Zui took a seat and inquired, "What business do you have with me, young master Yu?" Yu Xiaoyao replied, "Have you forgotten that I mentioned Zhou Jinxi intends to target you? As you will be staying out tonight, you must exercise extra caution. Here is a concealed arrow for your protection." Chapter 47. The abduction of Miss Feng. Feng Zui expressed her gratitude and accepted the bamboo arrow tube. Yu Xiao informed her that it had a knob that allowed for 3 consecutive shots, and the arrows were coated with a paralyzing poison, sometimes even deadly. After taking the arrow tube, Feng Zui stood to leave. As she reached the doorway, she heard Yu Xiao call out to her, "Miss Feng, do you have something to discuss with me this afternoon? Is it regarding the palace?" Feng Zui turned abruptly, her eyes meeting Yu Xiaoyao's composed expression. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded slightly. Yu Xiao gazed at her and remarked, "There are some matters that are better left unknown." Upon returning to her room, Hong Ying and Hong Gu had already arranged everything. The room contained 2 large beds. Feng Zui would occupy one, while Hong Ying and Hong Gu would share the other. Though Feng Zui had not instructed them to keep watch, the 2 had already devised a plan. One would guard during the first half of the night, while the other would take the second half, ensuring the young lady's safety, especially as it was her first night away from home. Hong Ying extinguished the oil lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Exhausted from the day's events, Feng Zui soon fell into a deep slumber. During the first half of the night, Hong Gu kept vigil, watching over the sleeping figures of Hong Ying and Feng Zui while remaining alert to the outside. Having previously kept watch a few times within the general's estate, he knew the importance of this night and needed to remain vigilant, to maintain his alertness without disturbing the young ladies. Hong Gu sat on a small stool by the door. The inn was eerily quiet, and as the hour grew late, the darkness deepened, surrounding them in an unsettling silence. Feeling a touch of boredom, Hong Gu idly fiddled with his slingshot. Suddenly, a shadow flitted past the window, as if someone had dashed by. He rubbed his eyes, doubting his own perception. Quickly, he turned to check on the young lady and Hong Ying, relieved to see that they were both sound asleep. However, as he turned back towards the door, a figure clad in black appeared before him. Startled, Hong Gu raised his slingshot and was about to scream, when the intruder swiftly pressed a pressure point on his shoulder with one hand, while the other glimmered with a cold light aimed at his neck. Hong Gu swayed, his eyes wide with shock, and pointed a trembling finger at the intruder before collapsing to the ground. The black-clad figure, seeing him fall, caught him gently by the waist and laid him down softly. The first target had been successfully subdued, perfectly executed. The corner of the intruder's mouth curled slightly beneath the mask. With a graceful leap, resembling a cat, the figure glided over Hong Gu's fallen form, moving with such stealth that it seemed as if he were floating, and approached Hong Ying's bed. On this night of the 3rd day of the lunar month, the moon was absent, enveloping the night in profound darkness, where one could hardly see their own hand. Even though the intruder's eyes had adjusted to the shadows, he could not discern Hong Ying's features. Leaning closer, he observed that the young woman possessed a delicate beauty, though she was not exceptionally stunning. He approached the bedside of Feng Zui once more, though clarity eluded him. In a bid to discern more clearly, he lowered his head, drawing near to the young maiden's cheek, as if he could inhale the delicate fragrance of her breath. The room housed 2 beds of equal size, positioned side by side. Both young women possessed tall and slender figures, making it difficult for him to ascertain which one was the lady. However, as his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he discerned that Hong Ying appeared somewhat older. Chapter 48. Male or female? It was said that Feng Zui was merely 16 years old, and the woman beside her, with skin as white as snow and features that seemed even more exquisite, must be Feng Zui. Recalling the orders he had received, the black-clad figure knew he could not spare anyone aside from Miss Feng. Approaching Hong Ying, a glint of cold light flashed as she emitted not even a whimper before her head slumped to the side, crimson blood instantly staining the pillow. The second one was equally flawless. He then moved to Feng Zui's bedside, producing a handkerchief soaked in a soporific drug, which he placed over the beautiful girl's mouth and nose, ensuring she would not awaken for a day and a night. The black-clad man hoisted the girl over his shoulder, exclaiming, "My, this lass is rather heavy," before exhaling deeply. Finally, having completed his task, he approached the door, kicked Hong Ying's body aside, and gently leaped from the second floor to the grand hall below. This man possessed remarkable agility, akin to that of a cat, making not a single sound despite the considerable movement. At the Yanlianshan Inn, Zhou Jinxi inquired of his subordinates, "How are the arrangements progressing?" His subordinate replied, "The cat from the Shadow Guards has already been dispatched to bring Miss Feng over." "Well done," Zhou Jinxi smiled, though his expression remained somewhat somber. He had never anticipated that he, Zhou Jinxi, heir to the Duke of Shuanda, would resort to such base methods to obtain a woman. Yet, there was no alternative. He must have Feng Zui. "Someone is coming," a voice called from outside. Zhou Jinxi instructed, "Open the door." A black-clad man entered, carrying a woman on his back. The woman was clad in a loose, pitch-red silk nightgown adorned with intricate patterns, her head bowed, silky black hair cascading down, obscuring her face. The black-clad man respectfully placed her on Zhou Jinxi's bed, bowing as he said, "Miss Feng has been administered the soporific. She will not awaken for a day and a night. Rest assured, my lord, enjoy at your leisure." Zhou Jinxi cast a glance at the loquacious black-clad man and replied, "Understood. You may leave." Approaching the bedside, Zhou Jinxi gently brushed aside the hair that concealed the woman's visage. What? His eyes widened in astonishment. Before him was a face of unparalleled beauty, delicate, fair skin, features like a painting, and lips a vibrant red, full and alluring. However, this woman was not Feng Zui. Where had this foolish cat procured this woman? Suddenly, the woman's eyes snapped open, clear and bright, a subtle smile gracing her crimson lips. A cool, sharp object plunged into Zhou Jinxi's neck. The sting caused him to gasp. He attempted to retreat, but the woman's left hand gripped his right shoulder with immense strength, rendering him immobile. "I feel as though I have seen you before. Who are you?" Zhou Jinxi gritted his teeth and demanded. The woman remained silent, abruptly slamming her forehead against Zhou Jinxi's chin and lips. He felt a painful, numbing sensation in his lips, his teeth loosening under the agony, which clouded his reason. Zhou Jinxi was greatly astonished. He reached out intending to grasp the woman's throat, only to discover that she possessed an Adam's apple. An Adam's apple? How could that be? Before he could fully comprehend the situation, he felt a sharp pain as the person's knee struck his abdomen, leaving him in agony. Yet, he maintained his grip tightly around the man's throat. He could not let go. Chapter 49. He has a cat come in. He rasped, feeling the sharp object embedded deeper into the side of his neck. Blood trickled down, staining his shirt a deep crimson. At that moment, the door was forcefully pushed open, and several guards from the Shuanda Marquis' residence stormed in. Upon witnessing the scene, they immediately drew their swords and charged at the man opposite Zhou Jinxi. The man rolled over, leaped from the bed, and without hesitation, jumped out of the open window. His agility was remarkable. Within mere bounds, he vanished from sight. The guards rushed to the window, only to discover that the man had completely disappeared. Turning back, they reported, "Your Highness, he has escaped." Zhou Jinxi, his voice hoarse, instructed, "Forget about him. Come help me remove this." The guards, hearing his command, rushed forward and saw the sharp object lodge in Zhou Jinxi's neck. "Your Highness, this is a silver hairpin. It appears to be poisoned." Zhou Jinxi closed his eyes, realizing that Feng Zui truly wished to avoid an alliance with him. This man was likely a trap, perhaps a hired assassin she had procured. The visage of this man felt achingly familiar. He suddenly recalled who it was, the very one entangled with Feng Zui at Marquis. That Feng Zui was willing to sever ties with him for this man, that wretched woman. Why could she not simply comply and marry him? His father had proclaimed that her father, Feng Jinzhang, commanded an army of 300,000 in the northwest. A formidable alliance he could not afford to relinquish. He had intended for tonight to consummate their union, to make Feng Zui his. He had thought to charm her, much like he did with other women in the capital, believing her and her family would naturally submit to him. Little did he know, Feng Zui was proving to be exceedingly difficult, repeatedly rejecting him and now ensnaring him in a trap. Zhou Jinxi felt no remorse for abducting an innocent maiden, as if all blame lay elsewhere. Meanwhile, in the night at the inn, Feng Zui paced anxiously at the door of her room. The guards from the general's residence had surrounded the inn tightly. Inside, two figures lay on separate beds, Hong Ying and Hong Guo. Concerned gnawed at her for Yushio. She desperately wished Zhou Jinxi would be slain tonight. She mused that this would resolve all issues of this life and the last, and would not have been in vain for Hong Guo and Hong Ying to have suffered this ordeal. With that thought, she approached the beds to inspect Hong Ying and Hong Guo, both with eyes closed and elongated wounds grazing their necks. Feng Zui was all too familiar with such injuries. They were the mark of Zhou Jinxi's shadowy attendant cat. She could no longer endure this state of constant trepidation. She resolved to eradicate Zhou Jinxi as a threat. She understood that the cat by Zhou Jinxi's side was not a mere feline, but a master assassin with extraordinary agility. He is an assassin, as well as a shadow guard, the most trusted individual of Zhou Jinxi. Having been married for over a decade in her past life, Feng Zui naturally knew of this person's existence beside Zhou Jinxi. Whenever a special target needed to be eliminated or a particularly grave mission arose, Zhou Jinxi would dispatch the cat. The cat's method of killing involved a blade as delicate as the wings of a cicada, swiftly sealing the victim's fate with a single stroke to the throat. While Feng Zui was lost in thought, suddenly, a tall figure adorned in brocade leaped down from the sky and stood before her, startling her. Upon closer inspection, it was none other than Yu Xiaoyou. Chapter 50. I am Chu Chengyu at last. You have returned. How are you? Are you injured? Feng Zui rushed forward, her hands instinctively grasping the man's arms. She intended to inquire whether he had slain Zhou Jinxi, but her words faltered as she noticed the conspicuous marks around Yu Xiaoyou's neck, those purplish-red bruises, unmistakably bearing several fingerprints. Are you hot? Come here. Let me apply some medicine, she said anxiously. Yu Xiaoyou smiled, surprised that Feng Zui, in such a pressing situation, would express concern for his well-being rather than inquire about Zhou Jinxi's fate. He could sense the profound hatred Feng Zui harbored for Zhou Jinxi. It seems he is determined to have you. Such elaborate schemes and despicable tactics surely conceal a deeper conspiracy, he remarked. As Feng Zui retrieved a jade-green porcelain bottle to treat his wounds, she chuckled bitterly. I never imagined I held such significance in his eyes. In truth, what matters to Zhou Jinxi and the Duke of Shuanda is not me, but rather the general's mansion and the military power wielded by my family. Her tone dripped with sarcasm. Unable to resist, Yu Xiaoyou gently brushed a stray lock of her hair aside. Regrettably, he felt like a mere coward, incapable of doing anything for her. Feeling his tender touch, Feng Zui looked up at him, meeting his complex yet affectionate gaze, which felt both alien and familiar. Had she truly never encountered him in her past life? Why had she never heard of Yu Xiaoyou, neither in the capital nor in Yanlianshan? Suddenly, she yearned to know everything about Yu Xiaoyou, much like her mother had sought knowledge of his lineage. She wondered if he was suitable to be her husband. She mused that if Yu Xiaoyou were merely a wandering hero, she could be with him without reservations, albeit this would contradict her original intentions upon being reborn. Having endured such trials and tribulations in her previous life, Feng Zui dreaded experiencing them again. She feared falling into the depths of love and distrusted men and romance, convinced that she might spend her entire life in solitude. Young Master Yu, do you have any other names? She pondered aloud. Upon hearing her question, Yu Xiaoyou paused momentarily. Indeed, I possess another name. Yet, I wish I did not. You may have heard of my true name Chu Chengyu, he replied, gazing quietly at her. Chu is a surname of the royal family. The current emperor, Chu Yi, and his consort, Yuan Hou, have a fifth son, Chu Chengyu. How could this be possible? Feng Zui's grip on Yu Xiaoyou's sleeve slackened, and she took a few steps back. If he were indeed Chu Chengyu, then he should have been dead. The Empress, the fifth prince, the illness, the nunnery, the tragic hunt this year. Feng Zui was 16, and the fifth prince was 2 years her senior. In her past life, the fifth prince should have perished at the age of 16. He perished in a hunting expedition, trampled by hooves, pierced by countless arrows, and ultimately devoured by a tiger. The night was exceedingly frigid, a desolate winter evening, when a gust of chilling wind swept through, causing Feng Zui to shudder involuntarily. If the figure before him, Yu Xiaoyou, were indeed the fifth prince, then according to the memories of his past life, he should have succumbed 2 years ago at the tender age of 16.